There are moments when reality fractures, leaving behind evidence that refuses every logical conclusion. Dust-covered archives, isolated landmarks, and chilling eyewitness accounts preserve incidents that continue to unsettle investigators decades later. Each forgotten file reveals another unsettling layer, where certainty quietly dissolves into dread. So dim the lights, clear your mind, and let's venture into the most terrifying mysteries ever documented. On the eastern coast of the Baltic island of Öland, Sweden, a circular stone fortress stands quietly against the landscape. Known as Sandby Borg, its weathered walls overlook open fields and the sea, giving little indication of the tragedy preserved within. From a distance, the site appears peaceful, almost ordinary. Yet beneath the grass and scattered stones lies one of the most unsettling archaeological discoveries ever made in northern Europe, a place where time seems to have stopped in the middle of unimaginable violence. Sandby Borg was built during the Iron Age and formed part of a network of fortified settlements that once protected local communities. Archaeological evidence suggests the fortress was occupied during the 5th century AD, a turbulent period following the decline of the Western Roman Empire. Political alliances were shifting, regional leaders competed for influence, and wealth flowed through trade routes that connected Scandinavia with distant parts of Europe. For centuries, the fortress remained largely undisturbed. Then, modern excavations revealed a scene unlike almost any other. Scattered across homes and narrow pathways were the remains of men, women, and children who appeared to have died suddenly. Many skeletons showed signs of fatal blows to the head delivered at close range. Some victims collapsed inside their own homes, while others fell in doorways or streets, as though everyday life had been interrupted without warning. Remarkably, valuable possessions, including jewelry, imported glassware, silver ornaments, and everyday tools, were left untouched. That detail immediately puzzled archaeologists. Throughout history, raids were often motivated by wealth. Victorious attackers usually carried away anything valuable before leaving. At Sandby Borg, however, precious objects remained exactly where their owners had left them. It was almost as if taking the treasure had never been the purpose. Even more unusual was what happened afterward. The victims were never buried. Their bodies remained where they fell, gradually becoming part of the abandoned settlement itself. No evidence suggests surviving relatives returned to recover the dead, despite burial traditions being deeply important in Iron Age Scandinavian society. Why would an entire community leave loved ones behind? One explanation proposes that Sandby Borg became the target of a carefully planned political attack. Rival elites may have ordered the massacre to eliminate influential families and send a powerful warning to neighboring settlements. In this interpretation, the untouched valuables were intentional. Leaving everything behind transformed the fortress into a permanent symbol of defeat, ensuring that anyone who entered would witness the consequences. Another possibility centers on ritual beliefs. Some researchers have suggested that survivors or neighboring communities may have considered the fortress cursed after the killings. If the site became associated with violent death or spiritual contamination, fear alone might have discouraged anyone from returning, allowing the settlement to remain frozen in time. Other theories move further from conventional archaeology. Some speculate that an unknown epidemic followed the massacre, preventing recovery efforts. Others imagine internal betrayal rather than an external assault, suggesting trusted members of the community opened the gates before violence erupted. A few have even proposed that local legends of haunted places may preserve distant memories of what happened there, passed from one generation to the next long after the historical details faded. Excavations have uncovered only a portion of the fortress, meaning much of Sandby Borg remains hidden beneath the earth. Every new discovery offers valuable clues while raising equally compelling uncertainties. Who organized the attack? Why were the dead abandoned? And what story still waits beneath the untouched layers of stone and soil, preserved in silence for more than 15 centuries? Some mysteries are preserved by silence. Others are carved into stone, waiting for centuries before revealing even a fragment of their story. From the abandoned tragedy of Sandby Borg, our journey now shifts thousands of kilometers to a solitary hill rising above the rugged landscape of Palestine, a place where history, ambition, and unanswered questions have become inseparable. Seen from a distance, Herodium appears almost unnatural. Its smooth, symmetrical profile rises prominently above the surrounding hills, resembling a dormant volcano rather than a human creation. The summit is crowned with the remains of an immense fortress, while the slopes conceal layers of tunnels, chambers, and forgotten passageways. Even after 2,000 years, the site still dominates the horizon, a lasting reminder of extraordinary engineering and equally extraordinary ambition. Herodium was commissioned by King Herod the Great during the late 1st century BC. According to ancient historian Josephus, Herod chose this location to commemorate a military victory and transformed an existing hill into an architectural masterpiece unlike anything else in the region. Workers reshaped the landscape itself, enlarging the hill and constructing an elaborate palace fortress complete with luxurious living quarters, massive defensive walls, baths inspired by Roman designs, gardens, reservoirs, and sophisticated water systems capable of sustaining life in an otherwise unforgiving environment. To ancient visitors, Herodium would have appeared almost impossible, a royal residence rising from barren terrain through sheer determination and immense resources. Yet despite its grandeur, the fortress has long been associated with a mystery that continues to inspire debate among historians and archaeologists. For centuries, historical writings suggested that Herod himself was buried at Herodium. Josephus described an elaborate funeral procession that carried the king's body to the site, accompanied by soldiers, officials, and ceremonial displays befitting one of history's most controversial rulers. His account seemed remarkably detailed, yet generation after generation of explorers searched without locating the royal tomb. The absence became one of archaeology's enduring puzzles. Had Josephus been mistaken? Was the burial chamber destroyed beyond recognition? Or had the tomb simply remained hidden beneath centuries of debris? In 2007, after decades of excavation, archaeologist Ehud Netzer announced what many believed was the answer. His team uncovered an ornate mausoleum on the hillside, along with fragments of an elaborately decorated sarcophagus carved from reddish limestone. The discovery appeared to match several elements recorded in ancient texts, leading many researchers to identify the structure as Herod's long-lost burial place. Yet the announcement did not end the discussion. The tomb was found heavily damaged, with the sarcophagus shattered into countless pieces. Some scholars believe the destruction occurred during the First Jewish Revolt against Roman rule, when rebels may have intentionally targeted monuments connected to Herod, whose legacy remained deeply divisive. Others argue that the evidence linking the mausoleum directly to Herod is less definitive than it first appeared. No inscription bearing his name was discovered, leaving room for continued debate over whether the structure truly belonged to the king or another member of the royal household. That uncertainty has kept the conversation alive. Herodium also conceals an intricate underground world. Beneath the visible fortress lies an extensive network of tunnels and hidden chambers, many expanded during later conflicts. Some passageways were carved by defenders seeking protection from advancing Roman forces. Others served practical purposes, connecting storage rooms, water systems, and concealed escape routes. Walking through these narrow corridors today, it becomes difficult to distinguish construction from adaptation, original design from desperate survival. Could additional sealed chambers still exist beyond excavated sections? Archaeologists acknowledge that significant portions of the complex remain unexplored, their contents concealed by collapsed stone and accumulated earth. The fortress has inspired speculation extending beyond established archaeology. Some suggest Herodium may have concealed treasures removed before invading armies arrived. Others imagine that undiscovered archives or ceremonial chambers remain hidden within untouched sections of the hill, preserved by collapses that unintentionally protected them. Local traditions occasionally speak of concealed passageways stretching farther than currently documented, though such stories remain unverified. Another intriguing possibility concerns the hill itself. Because Herodium was artificially enlarged, researchers continue studying exactly how ancient engineers reshaped such an enormous landscape using the technology available more than 2,000 years ago. Their achievement is well documented, yet many practical details of the construction process remain subjects of ongoing investigation. Every excavation reveals new evidence while raising fresh questions about the planning, labor, and organization required to complete such a monumental project. As sunlight moves across the weathered stones, Herodium becomes more than an archaeological site. It is a place where confirmed history and lingering uncertainty exist side by side. The fortress has yielded remarkable discoveries, yet many of its deepest secrets remain locked within its walls and buried corridors. Perhaps future excavations will settle the debates surrounding Herod's final resting place, or perhaps the hill will continue guarding part of its story, reminding us that even the most carefully studied monuments can preserve mysteries that refuse to disappear. While Herodium leaves archaeologists searching through layers of stone for answers, another ancient site presents a different kind of mystery, one that was not hidden underground, but carried through the morning air. For centuries, travelers claimed they heard an enormous monument speak at sunrise, transforming silent stone into one of the ancient world's most remarkable unsolved phenomena. Standing on the west bank of the Nile near Luxor, Egypt, the Colossi of Memnon rise above the surrounding plain with quiet authority. Each statue towers approximately 18 meters high, carved from massive blocks of quartzite sandstone and weighing hundreds of tons. They depict Pharaoh Amenhotep III, who ruled during the 14th century BC, seated upon his throne with a calm, timeless expression. For more than 3,000 years, these colossal figures have endured shifting civilizations, seasonal floods, earthquakes, and relentless desert winds. Although they are commonly known as the Colossi of Memnon, the statues were never intended to represent the legendary Greek hero Memnon. That association developed centuries later, after Greek visitors connected the towering figures with stories from their own mythology. Over time, the name remained, while the statues themselves continued to guard the long-vanished mortuary temple they once stood before. Today, the temple has largely disappeared, claimed by earthquakes and repeated flooding from the Nile. Yet the two giant statues remain, standing almost alone against the landscape, as though patiently observing every generation that passes before them. Their greatest mystery emerged after a devastating earthquake struck the region in 27 BC. Historical accounts describe how the northern statue suffered significant damage, developing large cracks throughout its upper structure. Then, something extraordinary began to happen. At dawn, shortly after the first rays of sunlight reached the monument, witnesses reported hearing an unexpected sound. Some described it as a clear metallic note. Others compared it to the vibration of a plucked string, the hum of a musical instrument, or the faint voice of someone calling across a great distance. The sound appeared briefly, then faded as the morning progressed. The reports were not isolated. Roman officials, military commanders, scholars, and travelers documented their experiences over the following centuries. Several inscriptions carved directly onto the statues by ancient visitors describe hearing the mysterious sound firsthand. Among those believed to have witnessed the phenomenon was the Roman Emperor Hadrian, whose visit added further attention to the already famous monument. Descriptions varied from person to person, yet many agreed on one striking detail. The sound appeared most often during the early hours of the morning. Naturally, explanations began to emerge. Modern researchers generally believe the phenomenon resulted from natural physical processes. The earthquake likely created fractures within the quartzite stone, allowing moisture from cool nighttime air to collect inside tiny cracks. As sunrise rapidly warmed the monument, expanding air and evaporating moisture may have generated vibrations capable of producing audible tones. Similar acoustic effects have been observed in certain rock formations under specific environmental conditions, making this explanation both plausible and consistent with the available evidence. Another significant detail supports this interpretation. Around AD 199, Roman Emperor Septimius Severus ordered extensive restoration work on the damaged statue. Large sections were repaired, many of the cracks were filled, and the monument regained much of its original appearance. After those repairs, reports of the mysterious sounds virtually disappeared. For many historians, the timing seems more than coincidental, yet not everyone believes the entire mystery has been resolved. Some researchers question whether thermal expansion alone could consistently produce sounds distinctive enough to impress so many independent witnesses across generations. Others point out that descriptions differ considerably, suggesting the phenomenon may have involved several overlapping environmental factors rather than a single acoustic mechanism. Beyond academic discussion, more speculative ideas have continued to circulate. Some have imagined that the statues were intentionally engineered with hidden acoustic properties, allowing internal cavities to resonate under precise atmospheric conditions. Others have proposed that ancient builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of sound that has yet to be fully appreciated. Local traditions occasionally described the morning voice as a message from the statue itself, interpreting the sound as a greeting to the rising sun or an echo from a distant past. These interpretations remain matters of belief and folklore rather than established historical evidence, yet they illustrate the powerful impression the phenomenon left upon those who encountered it. Even today, the Colossi of Memnon inspire careful observation. Researchers continue studying the weathering of the stone, the effects of temperature fluctuations, and the remarkable craftsmanship that allowed monuments of such immense scale to survive for millennia. Every surface bears marks of natural erosion and human history alike, preserving clues that are still being examined. The voice that once drew emperors and travelers has long since fallen silent, but the questions it inspired have never entirely faded. Was the sound simply an extraordinary interaction between stone, moisture, and sunlight, witnessed at precisely the right moment? Or did those towering figures briefly reveal a property that modern understanding has only begun to approach? As the first light of dawn continues to touch their weathered faces each morning, the Colossi of Memnon remain silent witnesses to a mystery that still resonates through history. As the silent Colossi of Memnon leave behind echoes that may never be fully explained, our journey continues toward another ancient landscape where the mystery is not carried by sound, but buried beneath countless layers of earth. Here, every excavation uncovers remarkable pieces of humanity's earliest history, while equally compelling questions remain hidden just beyond the reach of certainty. Rising from the broad plains of northeastern Syria, Tel Brak appears at first glance to be little more than a windswept mound. Its gently sloping sides blend naturally into the surrounding countryside, giving few hints that this unassuming hill contains the remains of one of the world's oldest urban centers. Over thousands of years, generations built homes, temples, workshops, and public buildings upon the ruins of earlier settlements. As each community rose and faded, the landscape slowly grew higher, preserving an extraordinary record of human civilization beneath layers of compacted soil. Unlike many famous archaeological sites defined by towering monuments, Tel Brak reveals its significance gradually. Every layer represents another chapter, stretching back to the 6th millennium BC. Long before many of history's great cities emerged, People had already established a thriving settlement here, transforming open land into a growing center of trade, craftsmanship, and administration. Its age alone makes the site remarkable. For decades, historians believed that the first true cities developed almost exclusively in southern Mesopotamia before spreading outward into neighboring regions. Excavations at Tel Brak complicated that narrative. Archaeological evidence suggests that large, organized communities were developing here independently at roughly the same time. Instead of following a single path toward urban civilization, history appeared more diverse than previously imagined. That realization reshaped long-held assumptions about humanity's earliest cities. Among Tel Brak's most unusual discoveries is a structure known as the Eye Temple. Built and rebuilt over many centuries, the sanctuary earned its modern name from thousands of small stone figurines uncovered inside. Each carving features dramatically oversized eyes, their wide, staring expressions unlike almost anything found elsewhere in the ancient Near East. No written explanation survives. Who were these figures meant to represent? Many archaeologists believe they served as symbolic offerings left by worshippers, perhaps standing in perpetual prayer before a deity. Their exaggerated eyes may have represented watchfulness, devotion, or spiritual awareness. Others suggest they depicted the worshippers themselves, eternally observing the sacred space even after they had departed. Yet certainty remains elusive. The figurines vary greatly in size, style, and craftsmanship, hinting that they may have carried meanings no longer understood. Without surviving texts describing the rituals performed within the temple, modern interpretations remain carefully reasoned but ultimately incomplete. Elsewhere across the settlement, excavations have uncovered evidence of sophisticated administration, specialized industries, and long-distance trade networks. Seals used for accounting, finely crafted pottery, imported materials, and large public buildings suggest an increasingly organized society capable of coordinating complex economic activity. These discoveries reveal a community that was not merely surviving, but actively shaping regional development thousands of years before many later civilizations flourished. Even so, some findings raise difficult questions. Archaeologists uncovered areas containing large numbers of human remains dating to periods of violent conflict. Many skeletons show injuries consistent with organized warfare, suggesting Tel Brak witnessed episodes of intense bloodshed during its long history. Whether these deaths resulted from invasions, internal struggles, or broader regional instability remains uncertain. The evidence records the violence itself, but offers only fragments of the events that produced it. The site's immense age has naturally encouraged more speculative ideas as well. Some have imagined that unexplored sections of Tel Brak conceal libraries, ceremonial chambers, or archives capable of transforming modern understanding of the ancient world. Others wonder whether undiscovered temples still lie hidden beneath later construction, preserving beliefs and traditions that disappeared long before written history became widespread. Because only portions of the vast settlement have been excavated, such possibilities cannot be entirely dismissed, though no convincing evidence has yet confirmed them. The mound itself continues to guard countless secrets. Modern archaeological methods, including remote sensing and detailed soil analysis, have revealed that much of Tel Brak remains untouched. Every excavation opens only a small window into a settlement that accumulated over several thousand years. Beneath each exposed wall may rest another generation of buildings, another forgotten workshop, another place of worship, or another unexpected discovery waiting patiently beneath the earth. Standing atop the windswept mound today, it becomes difficult to imagine the vibrant city that once filled the horizon with voices, markets, ceremonies, and daily life. Time has reduced those lives to fragments of stone, clay, and bone, yet their story is far from complete. With so much of Tel Brak still concealed beneath its ancient layers, one cannot help but wonder how many chapters of humanity's earliest urban history remain hidden, waiting for the moment when they finally emerge into the light. From the layered history of Tel Brak, where every excavation peels back another chapter of humanity's earliest cities, our path now leads across the globe to the highlands of central Mexico. Here, another ancient settlement challenges familiar narratives, not through buried temples alone, but through an entire civilization that disappeared beneath a river of molten stone, leaving behind questions that continue to intrigue archaeologists more than 2,000 years later. On the southern edge of modern Mexico City, surrounded by expanding neighborhoods and busy roads, lies the quiet archaeological site of Cuicuilco. At first glance, it appears surprisingly modest. Grass-covered mounds rise gently from the landscape, interrupted by the remains of circular stone platforms, unlike the towering pyramids more commonly associated with ancient Mesoamerica. The centerpiece of the site is a massive circular pyramid, one of the earliest monumental structures ever constructed in the region. Weathered by centuries of wind and rain, its broad terraces still preserve the outline of a civilization that once flourished long before many of the better-known cities of ancient Mexico. Cuicuilco emerged during the first millennium BC, gradually growing into a major ceremonial and population center. Fertile volcanic soils supported agriculture, while nearby lakes provided abundant natural resources. Archaeological discoveries reveal carefully planned architecture, sophisticated pottery, organized public spaces, and evidence of a society capable of coordinating large construction projects. By the final centuries before the Common Era, the settlement had become one of the most influential communities in the Valley of Mexico. Its future, however, would be shaped by the very landscape that had helped it prosper. To the south stood the Sitla volcano. At some point between the 1st century BC and the 1st centuries AD, Sitla erupted with extraordinary force. Thick lava flows spread across the surrounding terrain, engulfing fields, villages, and large sections of Cuicuilco beneath layers of hardened volcanic rock. Today, those ancient lava fields still define much of the region, preserving an unmistakable reminder of the catastrophe that transformed the landscape forever. For many years, archaeologists viewed the eruption as the decisive event that ended the city's prominence. The explanation seemed straightforward. A thriving settlement was overwhelmed by volcanic activity, forcing its inhabitants to abandon their homes and seek safety elsewhere. Yet the archaeological evidence has proven more complex. Excavations suggest that portions of Cuicuilco may have remained occupied during different phases of the eruption. Some researchers argue that the evacuation occurred gradually rather than all at once, with residents adapting to changing conditions for years before finally relocating. Others propose that neighboring settlements absorbed much of the displaced population, contributing to the later growth of emerging urban centers such as Teotihuacan. Whether the disaster unfolded over weeks, years, or generations remains a subject of continuing study. The circular pyramid itself adds another layer of fascination. Unlike the rectangular pyramids that later became widespread throughout Mesoamerica, Cuicuilco's principal monument follows a distinctive circular design. Archaeologists have proposed several explanations. Some believe the shape reflected early ceremonial traditions unique to the region. Others suggest it may have been connected to astronomical observations, ritual processions, or symbolic concepts now lost to history. Without surviving written records from the builders themselves, its original purpose can only be reconstructed through careful analysis of architecture, artifacts, and surrounding structures. Even after decades of excavation, many details remain uncertain. The extensive lava flows that once preserved parts of the ancient city have also concealed them. Large sections of Cuicuilco remain inaccessible beneath hardened volcanic rock, making excavation exceptionally difficult. Modern technology, including ground-penetrating surveys and geological analysis, has helped identify buried features, but archaeologists acknowledge that much of the settlement has yet to be explored. That hidden landscape has naturally encouraged speculation. Some researchers wonder whether significant ceremonial complexes still lie intact beneath the lava, preserved almost exactly as they were when volcanic ash and molten rock sealed them away. Others imagine undiscovered workshops, residential districts, or administrative buildings waiting beneath layers of basalt that have remained untouched for nearly 2,000 years. These possibilities remain hypothetical, but they reflect the unusual circumstances that make Cuicuilco unlike almost any other archaeological site in the Americas. Local traditions have occasionally added their own interpretations, describing the volcano as more than a natural force, suggesting that the eruption carried spiritual meaning for those who witnessed it. Such stories belong to cultural memory rather than verifiable history, yet they illustrate how profoundly the catastrophe shaped generations of imagination long after the city itself had faded. Standing beside the ancient circular pyramid today, surrounded by a modern metropolis, it becomes remarkably easy to overlook what lies beneath the surface. Roads, buildings, and neighborhoods cover ground that once echoed with ceremonies, commerce, and daily life before nature abruptly altered the course of an entire civilization. The visible ruins tell only part of the story. Beneath the hardened lava, countless structures may still rest in darkness, preserving silent evidence of lives interrupted by one of the most dramatic geological events in the region's history. Perhaps future discoveries will reveal how Cuicuilco truly met its fate, or perhaps some of its deepest secrets will remain forever sealed beneath stone forged by fire. As Cuicuilco reminds us that entire civilizations can disappear beneath the forces of nature, our journey continues to another remarkable city in Mexico, one that was not consumed by lava, but gradually surrendered to silence. Its temples still rise from dense tropical vegetation, its stone carvings remain astonishingly detailed, and yet the identity of many who built and ruled this extraordinary place continues to elude historians. Nestled among the green hills of the state of Veracruz, El Tajín emerges from the landscape with an almost timeless presence. Morning mist often drifts between its ancient structures, softening the sharp edges of weathered stone and giving the city an atmosphere that feels suspended between history and legend. Birds call from the surrounding forest, while carefully restored plazas stand remarkably still, as though waiting for voices that vanished centuries ago. El Tajín flourished between roughly AD 600 and AD 1200, becoming one of the most influential ceremonial and political centers in Mesoamerica. At its height, the city may have supported tens of thousands of inhabitants. Its builders created an impressive network of pyramids, palaces, plazas, residential districts, and an extraordinary number of ball courts. At least 17 have been identified, more than at almost any other known Mesoamerican site. Despite its architectural brilliance, one mystery appears almost immediately. No surviving written history clearly identifies the people who founded El Tajín. Unlike some neighboring civilizations that left extensive inscriptions recording rulers, dynasties, and historical events, El Tajín provides relatively few direct historical accounts. Archaeologists have reconstructed much of the city's story through architecture, sculpture, ceramics, and regional comparisons rather than detailed written records. The city's most recognizable structure, the Pyramid of the Niches, reflects both remarkable engineering and enduring mystery. Its symmetrical design incorporates 365 carefully constructed niches distributed across the pyramid's exterior. The number immediately attracts attention because it matches the number of days in the solar year. Many researchers believe the monument functioned as a symbolic calendar, expressing sophisticated astronomical knowledge through architecture. Others suggest the niches carried ceremonial or religious meanings extending far beyond simple timekeeping. Without written explanations from its builders, the pyramid continues to invite interpretation. Throughout El Tajín, carved stone panels depict elaborate ceremonies, rulers dressed in ornate regalia, and scenes connected to the Mesoamerican ball game. Some reliefs portray ritual sacrifice associated with these events, illustrating beliefs in which athletic competition, political authority, and religious devotion formed parts of a much larger worldview. Yet many carvings remain difficult to interpret fully. Individual symbols appear repeatedly, but their precise meanings remain uncertain. Certain figures seem to represent deities, while others may depict historical leaders or mythological narratives that have been lost over time. Every newly examined carving adds valuable information while leaving significant gaps in the broader picture. Another enduring mystery surrounds the city's decline. By the early 13th century, El Tajín had largely been abandoned. Archaeological evidence suggests portions of the city experienced burning, structural damage, and social disruption before its population dispersed. Whether these events resulted from warfare, political instability, environmental pressures, changing trade routes, or a combination of several factors remains actively debated. Unlike a city destroyed in a single dramatic event, El Tajín appears to have faded gradually, making its final years particularly difficult to reconstruct. Its remarkable preservation has also encouraged more speculative ideas. Some visitors have suggested that the precise geometry of the Pyramid of the Niches reflects mathematical or astronomical knowledge beyond what is generally credited to its builders. Others have imagined that unexplored chambers still exist beneath the major monuments, preserving ceremonial objects or historical records capable of transforming current understanding of the city. Archaeologists remain cautious about such possibilities, emphasizing that while many areas await investigation, extraordinary claims require equally compelling evidence. Even so, significant portions of El Tajín remain only partially explored. Dense vegetation covered the site for centuries before systematic excavations began. Although restoration has revealed many major buildings, researchers acknowledge that additional residential districts, ceremonial structures, and underground features may still lie concealed beneath surrounding soil and forest. Advances in remote sensing technology continue to identify anomalies that could represent undiscovered architecture, ensuring that the site still holds genuine archaeological potential. Local traditions have also contributed to the city's enduring mystique. The name El Tajín is often associated with powerful spiritual beings connected to storms and thunder in regional belief systems. While these traditions developed long after the city's greatest period of influence, they reflect the lasting impression its monumental architecture has left upon generations who lived nearby. Walking through the ancient plazas today, surrounded by towering pyramids and intricate carvings, it becomes clear that El Tajín still guards much of its identity. The stones preserve extraordinary craftsmanship, yet they remain remarkably reserved about the people who shaped them. Their language survives only in fragments, their rulers remain largely anonymous, and their final chapter continues to resist complete explanation. Somewhere beneath the forest floor, or perhaps hidden within symbols that have yet to be fully understood, more pieces of that forgotten story may still be waiting to emerge. As the quiet plazas of El Tajín leave us contemplating civilizations that revealed so much while concealing even more, our journey now reaches a place that reaches even farther into humanity's past. Long before kingdoms rose, before writing preserved history, and before monumental empires reshaped the ancient world, a solitary stone tower was already standing. Its builders left no written explanation, allowing one of the oldest architectural mysteries on Earth to endure for nearly 10,000 years. In the fertile Jordan Valley of Palestine, the ancient settlement of Jericho occupies an extraordinary place in human history. Layer upon layer of occupation has transformed the site into a broad archaeological mound, preserving evidence of continuous habitation across countless generations. Among these remains stands one of the most astonishing structures ever uncovered from the Neolithic period, a massive circular stone tower built around 8000 BC. Even today, its appearance is striking. Rising roughly 8 meters above its foundation and constructed from carefully stacked, undressed stones, the tower dominates the surrounding archaeological remains despite its immense age. Inside, a narrow staircase ascends through the structure, its stone steps still visible after nearly 10 millennia. The craftsmanship reflects careful planning and an impressive investment of labor at a time when metal tools, pottery, and written language had yet to appear. For archaeologists, the tower immediately raises a profound question. Why would one of humanity's earliest farming communities devote such enormous effort to constructing a monument of this scale? The earliest explanation focused on defense. Jericho was surrounded by an equally impressive stone wall, leading many researchers to conclude that the tower formed part of a defensive system designed to protect the settlement from attackers. From its elevated position, observers could monitor the surrounding landscape, while the adjoining wall offered a physical barrier against potential threats. At first glance, the interpretation seems reasonable. Yet over time, new discoveries complicated the picture. Some archaeologists argue that evidence for large-scale warfare during this early period remains surprisingly limited. The settlement may not have faced organized military threats comparable to those of later civilizations. If so, constructing such a monumental defensive tower appears difficult to explain solely through concerns about conflict. Another possibility gradually emerged. Some researchers propose that the tower may have served as protection against seasonal flooding rather than human enemies. Jericho's location near natural water sources exposed the settlement to changing environmental conditions, and the surrounding wall may have helped control floodwaters, while the tower functioned as part of a broader engineering system. Even this explanation leaves unanswered questions. The tower's carefully designed staircase and commanding height seem to suggest purposes extending beyond simple flood management. One particularly influential theory points toward astronomy. Detailed studies have shown that, at the time of construction, the setting sun during the summer solstice may have aligned with nearby mountains when viewed from the tower. Some researchers believe this alignment could have given the structure ceremonial significance, transforming it into a place where seasonal cycles, community gatherings, and symbolic observations became intertwined. If correct, the tower may represent one of humanity's earliest known examples of monumental architecture connected to celestial events. The idea is compelling, though not universally accepted. Without written records, certainty remains impossible. Other interpretations emphasize the tower's psychological and social importance rather than its practical function. Organizing hundreds of people to quarry stone, transport materials, and complete such an ambitious project would have required cooperation on an unprecedented scale. In this view, the tower itself may have symbolized unity, shared identity, or emerging leadership within one of the world's earliest permanent communities. The monument becomes not merely a structure, but evidence of profound social transformation. Naturally, such an ancient site has also inspired more speculative ideas. Some have imagined the tower as part of an unknown ritual landscape whose true purpose disappeared long before recorded history. Others have proposed that hidden chambers or additional underground features remain concealed beneath the surrounding settlement, waiting to reveal entirely new aspects of Neolithic life. While no convincing evidence currently supports extraordinary claims, archaeologists acknowledge that only portions of ancient Jericho have been excavated, leaving significant sections still buried beneath thousands of years of accumulated habitation. The site's immense antiquity ensures that every excavation introduces fresh discoveries alongside new uncertainties. Advances in archaeological science continue refining our understanding of early human societies, yet the Jericho Tower consistently resists simple classification. It appears simultaneously practical and symbolic, defensive and ceremonial, familiar and deeply enigmatic. Each theory explains part of the evidence while leaving important details unresolved. Standing before those weathered stones today, it is remarkable to consider how many generations have looked upon the same structure, each bringing its own interpretation, while the tower itself remains silent. Nearly 10,000 years after its construction, it continues to challenge assumptions about the abilities, beliefs, and ambitions of humanity's earliest settled communities. Perhaps future discoveries will finally reveal why it was built, or perhaps its greatest purpose still rests hidden somewhere beneath the ancient layers of Jericho, waiting patiently for another piece of the past to emerge. From the ancient Tower of Jericho, where stone has preserved unanswered questions for nearly 10,000 years, our journey now crosses another vast landscape shaped by time and survival. Here, towering walls rise from volcanic rock beneath an endless sky, marking the remains of a thriving community whose disappearance remains one of the American Southwest's most enduring archaeological mysteries. In northern Arizona, surrounded by broad plains, scattered lava fields, and distant volcanic peaks, the ruins of Wupatki Pueblo stand in remarkable silence. Built from red sandstone that blends naturally with the surrounding desert, the settlement seems almost to emerge from the earth itself. Sunlight shifts across its weathered walls throughout the day, revealing carefully crafted masonry that has endured centuries of wind, rain, and extreme temperatures. Despite the harsh environment, Wupatki was once an active center of daily life. Construction began around the 12th century AD, during a period when several indigenous communities occupied the region. Archaeological evidence suggests that Wupatki quickly developed into one of the largest and most influential settlements in northern Arizona. At its height, the pueblo contained more than 100 rooms, open courtyards, ceremonial spaces, storage chambers, and a unique ball court believed to reflect cultural connections with communities much farther to the south. Its location appears unlikely at first. Rainfall is limited, summers can be intensely hot, and reliable water sources are scarce. Yet, the people who settled here developed remarkably effective methods of farming. Volcanic ash from earlier eruptions helped retain moisture within the soil, allowing crops such as maize, beans, and squash to grow under conditions that might otherwise have seemed impossible. This ability to adapt transformed an unforgiving landscape into a prosperous community. Trade also played a vital role in Wupatki's success. Archaeologists have uncovered shells from distant coastlines, colorful minerals, finely crafted pottery, and other materials transported across hundreds of kilometers. These discoveries reveal extensive exchange networks connecting diverse cultures throughout the Southwest, demonstrating that Wupatki was far from isolated. Yet, for all that has been learned about the settlement, one question continues to dominate discussion. Why was it abandoned? By the late 13th century, the pueblo's population had largely dispersed. The buildings remained standing, but the vibrant community that once filled its plazas gradually disappeared. Unlike sites destroyed by sudden warfare or catastrophic natural disasters, Wupatki appears to have experienced a more gradual transition. Several explanations have been proposed. Climate change remains among the most widely accepted. Extended periods of drought may have reduced agricultural productivity, making it increasingly difficult to support a growing population. Even resilient farming techniques would eventually struggle under prolonged environmental stress, encouraging families to relocate toward more reliable water sources. Other researchers emphasize social and economic changes. Trade networks shifted over time, neighboring communities evolved, and regional alliances likely changed as well. Wupatki may simply have lost its strategic importance as surrounding populations reorganized themselves in response to new opportunities and challenges. Yet, the archaeological record leaves room for uncertainty. Evidence suggests that some structures were carefully closed rather than hastily abandoned. Doorways were intentionally sealed, valuable objects were not uniformly removed, and certain ceremonial areas appear to have been treated with deliberate respect before residents departed. These details imply that the people of Wupatki may have planned their departure thoughtfully, rather than fleeing in panic. What prompted such a carefully organized transition remains difficult to determine. The settlement's ceremonial architecture introduces additional layers of mystery. Among its most intriguing features is a natural geological formation known as the blowhole. Under specific atmospheric conditions, air pressure forces cool air upward through an opening in the rock, creating a noticeable breeze that emerges unexpectedly from the ground. Visitors encountering the phenomenon for the first time often find it surprising, even today. Whether the ancient inhabitants incorporated this unusual feature into religious ceremonies remains unknown. Some archaeologists believe naturally occurring geological phenomena, such as the blowhole, may have enhanced the site's spiritual significance, serving as places where the natural world appeared unusually dynamic. Others urge caution, noting that direct evidence linking the feature to ceremonial practices has not been discovered. As with many ancient settlements, more speculative ideas have also emerged. Some have suggested that unexplored rooms still conceal ceremonial objects or symbolic artwork capable of revealing forgotten aspects of Puebloan belief systems. Others imagine hidden passageways beneath collapsed walls or undiscovered structures extending beyond the excavated areas. While these possibilities remain unverified, they reflect an important reality. Only part of the ancient settlement has been fully investigated. Modern archaeological techniques continue revealing subtle details invisible to earlier generations of researchers. Soil analysis, architectural studies, and remote sensing have expanded understanding of how Wupatki functioned, yet significant portions of its story remain incomplete. Standing among the quiet sandstone walls today, surrounded by vast open skies and volcanic landscapes, it is difficult not to sense the passage of countless generations. The stones preserve evidence of remarkable resilience, careful planning, and vibrant cultural exchange, yet they remain silent regarding the final decision that transformed a thriving community into an enduring archaeological mystery. Somewhere within those weathered rooms, or perhaps in the landscape itself, another piece of Wupatki's story may still be waiting, preserved by time and patiently resisting every attempt to uncover it. As the silent walls of Wupatki Pueblo remind us that thriving communities can gradually fade while leaving only fragments of their story behind, our journey now turns to another ancient landscape, where stone, ritual, and unanswered questions have endured for thousands of years. Hidden among rolling hills in northeastern China lies a ceremonial complex so unexpected that it has challenged long-held ideas about the origins of organized civilization. Surrounded by rugged ridges and quiet valleys, the archaeological site of Niuheliang blends almost seamlessly into the landscape. There are no towering palaces dominating the horizon, nor massive fortifications announcing the presence of an ancient kingdom. Instead, low earthen mounds, carefully arranged stone platforms, and scattered ceremonial structures stretch across the hills, revealing themselves only through patient observation. The setting possesses an unusual stillness, as though the land itself has preserved memories that have yet to be fully understood. Niuheliang dates to approximately 3,500 BC and belongs to the Hongshan culture, one of the earliest Neolithic societies of northeastern China. Long before the emergence of the great dynasties that would later shape Chinese history, the people of this region constructed an elaborate ceremonial center, unlike anything previously associated with communities of that period. Its discovery surprised archaeologists. For many years, conventional theories suggested that large-scale ritual architecture developed alongside later urban states. Niuheliang challenged that assumption. Here was evidence that sophisticated ceremonial planning, monumental construction, and complex spiritual traditions had already appeared thousands of years earlier, created by communities that left behind no written records. Among the site's most remarkable discoveries is a structure now known simply as the Goddess Temple. Although only its foundations survive, excavations revealed fragments of remarkably detailed clay sculptures, including parts of a human face with delicately crafted features and eyes, once inlaid with polished jade. These statues were considerably larger than life, suggesting they represented figures of exceptional importance. Who or what they portrayed remains uncertain. Some researchers believe the sculptures depicted a powerful female deity associated with fertility, creation, or protection. Others suggest they represented revered ancestors or symbolic guardians connected to ceremonial traditions now completely lost. Without inscriptions to guide interpretation, the identity of these figures continues to invite careful debate. The use of jade adds another layer of fascination. Niuheliang has yielded numerous finely carved jade artifacts, including elegant dragon-shaped ornaments that rank among the earliest known examples of jade craftsmanship in East Asia. Producing such objects required considerable skill, specialized knowledge, and access to valuable materials. Their presence indicates that jade already possessed profound ceremonial significance thousands of years before it became one of the defining symbols of later Chinese civilization. Exactly why these objects held such importance remains only partially understood. Across the surrounding hills, archaeologists have also uncovered carefully constructed stone cairns containing elaborate burials. Some individuals were interred with exceptional quantities of jade, while others received comparatively modest treatment. These differences suggest a society that recognized distinctions in status or ceremonial authority. Yet, the precise nature of that social structure remains unclear. Did political leadership emerge here alongside religious authority? Or did spiritual traditions themselves organize the community? The archaeological evidence offers intriguing possibilities without providing definitive answers. Equally remarkable is the site's overall layout. Temples, burial areas, and ceremonial platforms appear deliberately positioned across the landscape, rather than concentrated within a single enclosed settlement. Some researchers believe the arrangement reflects cosmological ideas linking sacred architecture to surrounding mountains and natural landmarks. Others have explored possible astronomical alignments, proposing that certain structures may have corresponded with seasonal observations or celestial events. While these interpretations remain under investigation, they demonstrate the remarkable level of planning evident throughout the complex. Naturally, a site of such antiquity has inspired more speculative interpretations as well. Some have suggested that undiscovered ceremonial chambers remain hidden beneath the earthen mounds, preserved beneath layers of soil for more than 5,000 years. Others imagine that additional sculptures from the goddess temple survive intact, waiting to reveal artistic traditions unlike anything currently known. A few have even proposed that Niuheliang represents the remains of a forgotten ceremonial capital whose influence extended much farther than existing evidence can presently confirm. Archaeologists approach such ideas with understandable caution. Much of the surrounding landscape has yet to be excavated, and every new discovery has the potential either to support existing theories or reshape them entirely. Modern research continues to uncover subtle details through geological surveys, environmental studies, and increasingly sophisticated excavation techniques. Each season expands understanding of the Hongshan culture while simultaneously revealing how much remains concealed beneath the hills. Standing among the quiet stone platforms today, it becomes difficult to separate certainty from possibility. The fragments of statues, carefully carved jade, and monumental ceremonial architecture testify to a society whose achievements were once almost entirely forgotten. Yet the people who built this remarkable complex left no written explanation of their beliefs, their leaders, or the purpose behind many of their greatest creations. As more of Niuheliang gradually emerges from the earth, one question continues to linger in the silence. How much of this ancient ceremonial world still lies hidden beyond the boundaries of every excavation, patiently waiting for its story to be uncovered? From the ceremonial hills of Niuheliang, where silent stone figures continue to guard beliefs long erased by time, our journey now moves westward to the windswept countryside of southern England. Here, another ancient monument dominates its landscape, not through towering temples or sculpted statues, but through immense earthworks, whose true purpose and final chapter remain subjects of enduring debate. Rising above the rolling chalk hills of Dorset, Maiden Castle stretches across the landscape with remarkable scale. From ground level, its grassy slopes appear almost natural, blending seamlessly into the countryside. Only from above does the full complexity of the site become visible. Massive, concentric banks and deep defensive ditches wrap around the hill in a series of carefully engineered rings, creating one of the largest and most impressive Iron Age hill forts ever constructed in Europe. The entrance alone hints at extraordinary planning. Instead of a simple gateway, visitors approaching the fort were forced through winding passages bordered by towering earth embankments. Every turn restricted movement, making it difficult for large groups to advance quickly while exposing them to defenders positioned above. Even after more than 2,000 years, the sophistication of the design remains striking. Yet, Maiden Castle was far more than a military stronghold. Archaeological excavations have revealed evidence of houses, storage pits, workshops, animal enclosures, and communal gathering spaces. Thousands of people may have lived within its boundaries during periods of peak occupation, creating a thriving settlement that served as both a political and economic center for surrounding communities. Construction began during the late Neolithic period, but the hill fort reached its greatest extent during the Iron Age, around the first millennium BC. Over generations, its inhabitants expanded the defenses, reshaped the landscape, and transformed the hill into an immense center of regional importance. Its scale naturally raises an enduring question. Why invest such enormous effort into building defenses of this magnitude? The traditional explanation focuses on warfare. The elaborate earthworks appear well suited for resisting attacks, suggesting that growing competition among Iron Age communities encouraged increasingly sophisticated fortifications. Defensive architecture certainly formed an important part of the site's design. Yet many archaeologists believe the story is more complicated. Evidence suggests that hill forts such as Maiden Castle also functioned as centers of trade, administration, seasonal gatherings, and ceremonial activity. The impressive ramparts may have communicated prestige and authority as much as military strength, projecting the influence of the community to anyone approaching from the surrounding countryside. In this interpretation, the fort became both a place of protection and a powerful public statement. Perhaps the site's greatest mystery concerns its relationship with the Roman conquest of Britain. During excavations in the 20th century, archaeologists uncovered skeletons showing signs of severe injuries, including wounds caused by weapons. Some individuals appeared to have suffered violent deaths, leading early researchers to conclude that Maiden Castle had been the scene of a dramatic Roman assault during the 1st century AD. The interpretation proved compelling. It seemed to fit historical accounts describing Rome's expansion into Britain, offering what appeared to be direct archaeological evidence of a final, desperate battle. Over time, however, the picture became less certain. Later studies suggested that not all of the injuries necessarily resulted from a single, catastrophic attack. Some wounds may have occurred years apart, while others could reflect interpersonal violence, ritual practices, or conflicts unrelated to Roman forces. Dating evidence has also prompted renewed discussion about whether the burials represent one dramatic event or a much longer sequence of separate incidents? The question remains open. Another puzzle involves the settlement's gradual decline. Rather than being completely destroyed, Maiden Castle appears to have continued changing after Roman influence spread across the region. Certain areas remained occupied, while others slowly fell into disuse. The transition unfolded gradually, leaving archaeologists to reconstruct a complex process shaped by political change, shifting economies, and evolving cultural traditions rather than a single decisive moment. Naturally, a monument of this scale has inspired more speculative ideas. Some researchers have wondered whether unexcavated sections of the hill conceal ceremonial structures that would reshape current understanding of its earliest phases. Others have suggested that hidden burial sites or ritual deposits remain sealed beneath untouched earthworks, preserved by centuries of accumulated soil. Local folklore has occasionally described the hill as a place where ancient spirits linger or forgotten treasures remain concealed. Stories that belong to regional tradition rather than historical evidence, but nevertheless reflect the powerful impression the landscape continues to leave upon those who visit. Modern archaeological techniques continue revealing subtle details invisible to earlier generations. Geophysical surveys have identified buried features that may represent previously unknown buildings, pathways, and activity areas, demonstrating that much of Maiden Castle still awaits careful investigation. Standing atop the immense ramparts today, with the countryside stretching toward every horizon, it becomes easy to understand why generations chose this hill as a place of gathering, protection, and authority. Yet, despite decades of research, many of its deepest stories remain incomplete. The towering earthworks still conceal traces of lives shaped by conflict, cooperation, belief, and change. Somewhere beneath the quiet grass, another fragment of Maiden Castle's past may still be waiting, preserving answers that have remained hidden since the Iron Age gave way to history. As the towering earthworks of Maiden Castle remind us that even the most imposing monuments can leave behind more questions than answers, our journey now crosses the Atlantic to another ancient landscape, shaped not by stone walls, but by carefully sculpted hills of earth. Quiet, unassuming, and surrounded by dense forests, these remarkable formations conceal a ceremonial past that continues to puzzle archaeologists centuries after their builders disappeared from history. In western Tennessee, rising gently above the surrounding woodlands, the Pinson Mounds appear almost like natural hills scattered across the landscape. Covered in grass and shaded by towering hardwood trees, they blend so completely into their environment that an unfamiliar visitor could easily overlook their significance. Yet, beneath these carefully shaped earthen structures lies one of the largest and most mysterious ceremonial complexes ever constructed in prehistoric North America. The silence of the site is striking. Birdsong drifts through the forest canopy, while winding trails connect mounds of varying shapes and sizes. Some rise only a few meters above the ground, while others dominate the surrounding terrain. The largest, known as Saul's Mound, stands more than 20 meters high, making it one of the tallest prehistoric earthen mounds in the United States. Even today, its broad summit offers sweeping views across the surrounding landscape, suggesting that its placement was anything but accidental. Archaeological evidence indicates that the Pinson Mounds were constructed between approximately 100 BC and AD 300 by communities associated with the Middle Woodland period, particularly the Hopewell cultural tradition. Rather than functioning as a permanent city filled with houses and daily activity, the site appears to have served a very different purpose. That distinction forms the heart of its mystery. Excavations have uncovered surprisingly little evidence for long-term residential occupation. There are relatively few remains of ordinary homes, kitchens, or large domestic settlements that would normally accompany a complex of this size. Instead, researchers found ceremonial features, ritual deposits, carefully arranged earthworks, and signs that people gathered here periodically before returning to communities scattered across the wider region. Why undertake such enormous construction for a place that may never have supported a permanent population? One widely accepted explanation suggests that Pinson Mounds functioned as a regional ceremonial center. Communities from great distances may have traveled here during important seasonal gatherings, participating in rituals, trade, feasting, and social events that reinforced cultural connections across hundreds of kilometers. The immense labor required to build the mounds may itself have strengthened cooperation between otherwise separate groups. Yet, many details remain uncertain. The precise functions of individual mounds continue to be debated. Some appear to have supported ceremonial structures built from wood, while others may have served as elevated platforms for public gatherings or ritual performances. Certain mounds contain burials, but others do not, indicating that they fulfilled different roles within the broader complex. One particularly intriguing feature is the site's unusual geometric planning. Several earthworks appear deliberately aligned with one another across considerable distances. Archaeologists have investigated whether these alignments correspond to astronomical events such as solstices or equinoxes. Some measurements suggest intentional relationships between certain structures and the movements of the sun, although not every proposed alignment has gained universal acceptance. Even so, the possibility remains fascinating. If celestial observations influence the design, the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of both landscape and seasonal cycles, integrating practical knowledge with ceremonial traditions in ways that continue to inspire research. The sheer scale of construction raises additional questions. Building Saul's Mound alone required moving vast quantities of soil using little more than woven baskets, wooden tools, and coordinated human effort. Such an undertaking implies careful planning, effective leadership, and a shared purpose strong enough to motivate generations of workers. What belief or tradition inspired that commitment? Without written records, the answer remains beyond reach. Naturally, the site's quiet atmosphere has encouraged more speculative interpretations over the years. Some have imagined that undiscovered chambers or ceremonial deposits remain sealed within the largest mounds, untouched since their construction nearly 2,000 years ago. Others suggest that extensive networks of earthworks once extended far beyond the areas currently visible, gradually erased by agriculture and natural erosion. These possibilities remain subjects for future investigation rather than established fact, yet they reflect how much of the site's original form may have been lost over time. Modern archaeological methods continue revealing subtle clues hidden beneath the landscape. Remote sensing, soil analysis, and geophysical surveys have identified buried features that may represent additional structures, pathways, or ceremonial spaces. Each new discovery expands understanding while reinforcing an important reality. Only a portion of the site's original complexity has been fully explored. Standing atop one of the great earthen mounds today, surrounded by quiet forests instead of bustling crowds, it becomes remarkably easy to imagine generations gathering here beneath open skies for ceremonies whose meaning has long since faded from memory. The carefully shaped hills remain, silent and enduring, preserving evidence of extraordinary cooperation and spiritual purpose while withholding the beliefs that inspired them. Somewhere beneath those ancient layers of earth, another piece of the story may still rest undisturbed, waiting for the moment when history finally uncovers what the builders intended these remarkable monuments to become. As the quiet earthworks of the Pinson Mounds leave us reflecting on ceremonial landscapes whose true purpose has faded with time, our journey continues into the rugged canyons of the American Southwest. Here, stone towers cling to the edges of cliffs with astonishing precision, overlooking silent valleys that have witnessed centuries of wind, drought, and unanswered questions. Perched above twisting ravines along the border of present-day Colorado and Utah, Hovenweep Castle appears almost impossible. Built directly atop the fractured edges of massive sandstone boulders, the structure rises from the canyon rim as though it had grown naturally from the rock beneath it. Its weathered sandstone walls still stand with remarkable stability, despite centuries of harsh winters, powerful winds, and seasonal storms. From a distance, the tower seems less like a ruin than a silent sentinel, watching over a landscape that has changed very little since its builders departed. Despite its name, Hovenweep Castle was never a castle in the medieval sense. The name was given by later explorers impressed by its commanding appearance. In reality, the structure formed part of a much larger network of villages built by the ancestral Pueblo people between approximately AD 1200 and AD 1300. Throughout the region, dozens of towers, dwellings, storage rooms, plazas, and ceremonial spaces were carefully positioned around canyon heads where seasonal springs provided precious water. The engineering remains remarkable. Many walls were constructed directly upon uneven bedrock with extraordinary precision. Builders carefully shaped sandstone blocks so tightly that only thin layers of mortar were required. Even where foundations followed irregular cracks in the stone, the structures have survived for centuries with surprisingly little movement. Their craftsmanship raises an immediate question. Why build such elaborate towers in locations that appear both difficult to reach and challenging to construct? One traditional explanation emphasizes defense. The elevated positions offered commanding views across surrounding valleys, allowing inhabitants to monitor approaching visitors while taking advantage of naturally protected terrain. Narrow entrances and carefully designed layouts would certainly have made the towers easier to defend if conflict arose. Yet, many archaeologists believe that explanation tells only part of the story. Several towers contain architectural features that seem poorly suited for prolonged military occupation. Some include unusually placed windows, distinctive interior arrangements, and orientations that appear to correspond with significant solar events. These observations have encouraged researchers to consider broader possibilities. Astronomical observations may have played an important role. Studies suggest that certain windows and wall alignments allow sunlight to enter at precise angles during solstices and equinoxes. If intentional, these carefully designed sightlines may have helped mark seasonal changes essential for agriculture and ceremonial life. Rather than serving solely as watchtowers, some structures could have functioned as sophisticated observation points where architecture and astronomy became closely connected. The evidence remains compelling, though not conclusive. The surrounding settlement presents additional mysteries. Unlike densely packed cities, Hovenweep consists of multiple villages distributed across several canyon systems. Each community appears connected through shared architectural traditions, while maintaining its own local identity. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of farming, food storage, trade, and everyday domestic life. Yet, the overall organization of these settlements continues to inspire debate. Were they governed cooperatively? Did individual communities answer to a broader regional authority? Or did social relationships remain far more flexible than modern interpretations suggest? Without written records, certainty remains elusive. Perhaps the greatest mystery concerns the region's abandonment. By the late 13th century, the inhabitants gradually departed. Their stone buildings remained standing, but the communities that had carefully maintained them dispersed across the southwest. Archaeological evidence points toward several contributing factors. Extended drought likely reduced agricultural productivity, while environmental pressures, resource competition, and shifting social networks may have encouraged migration toward more reliable sources of water. Even so, no single explanation fully accounts for the transition. Many structures appear to have been left in an orderly manner rather than hastily abandoned. Valuable tools were removed from some buildings, while others retained everyday objects exactly where they had last been used. The pattern suggests a carefully planned departure rather than sudden catastrophe. That quiet disappearance continues to invite reflection. Naturally, Hovenweep has also inspired more speculative interpretations. Some have imagined hidden chambers sealed beneath collapsed towers, preserving ceremonial objects or records that have escaped discovery for more than 7 centuries. Others have proposed that additional astronomical alignments remain unnoticed, waiting for future research to reveal a more sophisticated understanding of the site's design. While such ideas remain unverified, archaeologists acknowledge that many questions surrounding Hovenweep's planning and symbolism have yet to receive definitive answers. Modern technologies, including high-resolution mapping and remote sensing, continue revealing subtle details across the surrounding landscape. Buried walls, agricultural features, and ancient pathways are gradually emerging, demonstrating that the visible ruins represent only part of a much larger cultural landscape shaped through generations of careful planning. Standing beside Hovenweep Castle today, with endless canyon walls stretching toward the horizon, it becomes remarkably easy to understand why this place continues to inspire quiet fascination. Every stone reflects extraordinary skill, every doorway hints at forgotten routines, and every carefully positioned window suggests knowledge that has only partially survived the passage of time. The towers have remained steadfast through centuries of silence, but their deepest purpose still rests somewhere between archaeology, memory, and mystery. Perhaps the answers remain hidden within the surrounding canyons, waiting patiently for another fragment of the past to emerge from the desert landscape. From the watchful towers of Hovenweep Castle, where carefully placed stones still overlook silent canyons, our journey follows the same rugged landscape deeper into the American Southwest. Not far away, hidden within the shelter of towering sandstone cliffs, another extraordinary settlement appears almost invisible until the canyon itself reveals it. Here, an entire community was built into the rock, then quietly abandoned, leaving behind one of North America's most enduring archaeological mysteries. High within a vast natural alcove in southwestern Colorado rests Cliff Palace, the largest and most celebrated dwelling at Mesa Verde. From the canyon rim, it is almost impossible to see. Only after looking over the edge does the settlement gradually emerge from the shadows, its golden sandstone walls blending almost perfectly with the surrounding cliff. Protected by the enormous overhanging rock above, the village seems suspended between earth and sky, hidden from the outside world by both nature and careful design. Even after more than 7 centuries, the scale of the settlement remains astonishing. Cliff Palace contains more than 150 rooms, dozens of storage spaces, and over 20 circular ceremonial chambers known as kivas. Carefully fitted sandstone blocks, bonded with mud mortar, form walls that remain remarkably intact despite centuries of exposure. Wooden beams still span portions of the buildings, offering rare insight into construction techniques perfected by the ancestral Pueblo people. The settlement reached its greatest period of occupation during the late 12th and 13th centuries A.D. At its height, several hundred people may have lived within the alcove, creating a thriving community supported by nearby agriculture on the mesa above. Crops such as maize, beans, and squash sustained daily life, while trade connected Mesa Verde with distant communities throughout the Southwest. Yet one question immediately presents itself. Why build an entire village inside a cliff? The most familiar explanation centers on security. By the time Cliff Palace was constructed, many communities across the region had begun relocating from open mesas into naturally protected alcoves. Narrow access routes, elevated positions, and concealed entrances would have made these settlements easier to defend during periods of uncertainty. Archaeological evidence suggests that regional tensions, competition for resources, and environmental pressures may have increased during this period, making defensible locations increasingly attractive. Even so, defense alone may not fully explain the remarkable complexity of the site. Some researchers believe the alcove offered practical environmental advantages beyond protection. The towering rock overhang shielded homes from heavy snowfall and intense summer sunlight, while helping moderate temperature throughout the year. The natural shelter also reduced erosion, allowing structures to survive far longer than comparable buildings exposed on open ground. Others have explored possible ceremonial meanings. Several kivas appear carefully positioned within the settlement, while certain architectural alignments may correspond with seasonal sunlight or significant points along the horizon. Although many of these proposed alignments remain subjects of ongoing research, they suggest that Cliff Palace may have reflected not only practical concerns, but also deeply rooted spiritual traditions linking architecture, landscape, and the rhythms of the natural world. The greatest mystery, however, concerns its final chapter. Around the end of the 13th century, the inhabitants departed. The buildings remained standing. Storage rooms were emptied with care. Many valuable tools accompanied the people as they left, suggesting an organized migration rather than a sudden catastrophe. Unlike settlements destroyed by warfare or natural disaster, Cliff Palace appears to have been deliberately and thoughtfully abandoned. Why? Climate remains one of the strongest explanations. Scientific evidence indicates that the region experienced an extended period of severe drought during the late 13th century. Declining harvests, shrinking water supplies, and growing environmental stress would have made long-term survival increasingly difficult. Yet drought alone may not tell the entire story. Researchers also point to changing trade networks, social transformations, political relationships, and evolving religious traditions as possible influences. Rather than responding to a single crisis, the people of Mesa Verde may have chosen migration as part of a broader cultural adaptation that unfolded over several generations. Exactly where every resident settled afterward remains difficult to reconstruct, although many descendant indigenous communities maintain oral traditions connecting their ancestors to Mesa Verde and neighboring regions. Naturally, Cliff Palace has inspired more speculative interpretations as well. Some visitors have wondered whether undiscovered chambers remain concealed behind collapsed walls or beneath accumulated debris, preserving ceremonial objects untouched for centuries. Others have suggested that additional passages or storage areas remain hidden within the surrounding cliff, protected by rockfalls that sealed them long ago. Archaeologists approach such ideas carefully, acknowledging that while unexplored areas do exist, extraordinary conclusions require equally compelling evidence. Modern research continues to reveal new details through advanced imaging, tree ring dating, environmental studies, and careful excavation. Every discovery refines understanding of daily life while simultaneously exposing new questions about the community's organization, beliefs, and eventual departure. Standing before Cliff Palace today, surrounded by towering sandstone walls and deep canyon silence, it becomes impossible not to wonder what those final days looked like. The carefully built homes remain exactly where they were left, their empty doorways opening toward a landscape that has changed surprisingly little. Every stone speaks of remarkable ingenuity, resilience, and cooperation, yet none explains why an entire community chose to walk away from one of the most extraordinary settlements ever created. Perhaps somewhere within the hidden corners of Mesa Verde, another fragment of that story still waits, preserved by shadow, stone, and the quiet passage of time. As the silent dwellings of Mesa Verde remind us that even entire communities can disappear while their homes remain frozen in time, our journey now descends beneath the surface of the earth itself. Far from windswept cliffs and open landscapes lies another mystery, carved not into mountainsides exposed to the sky, but into the hidden darkness beneath a quiet valley where one of archaeology's greatest puzzles waited unnoticed for centuries. In Zhejiang Province, China, the entrance to the Longyou Caves appears almost ordinary. From above, the openings resemble tranquil ponds scattered across the countryside, their still waters reflecting trees and drifting clouds. For generations, local residents believed these pools were simply natural features with no measurable depth. Their calm surfaces concealed an astonishing secret that would not be revealed until the final years of the 20th century. In 1992, villagers decided to drain one of the ponds using water pumps. As the water slowly disappeared, smooth stone walls began to emerge from the darkness. Instead of a natural cavity, an enormous hand-carved chamber appeared beneath the surface. Further investigation uncovered not one cave, but a vast underground complex. Eventually, archaeologists identified 24 massive artificial caverns, each carefully excavated from solid siltstone with extraordinary precision. The discovery immediately raised an unforgettable question. Who carved these immense chambers, and why? Each cave measures thousands of square meters in area, supported by carefully shaped stone pillars left standing to prevent collapse. The ceilings soar high overhead, while walls, columns, and floors display remarkably consistent chisel marks arranged in parallel diagonal patterns. These decorative grooves extend across virtually every exposed surface, creating an unusual sense of symmetry and craftsmanship, unlike most ancient underground structures. What makes the caves even more remarkable is their engineering. Despite their enormous size, there is little evidence of structural failure. Builders clearly understood how to remove tremendous quantities of rock while preserving the stability of each chamber. Archaeologists estimate that excavating the entire complex would have required removing close to 1 million cubic meters of stone, an undertaking demanding extraordinary organization, labor, and technical knowledge. Yet historical records remain almost completely silent. Chinese civilization has preserved remarkably detailed written accounts covering agriculture, construction, taxation, warfare, and major public works across many centuries. Projects considerably smaller than the Longyou Caves were often carefully documented. Strangely, no surviving historical source clearly describes the planning, construction, or purpose of these enormous underground chambers. That absence continues to puzzle historians. Based on available evidence, many researchers believe the caves were excavated around 2,000 years ago during the late Warring States period, or the early Han Dynasty. Dating remains challenging because relatively few artifacts were discovered inside the chambers themselves, leaving archaeologists to rely primarily on indirect evidence. As for their purpose, several carefully considered theories have emerged. Some scholars propose that the caves functioned as underground quarries where stone was extracted for construction elsewhere. However, this explanation raises additional questions. If quarrying had been the primary objective, why invest so much effort carving decorative chisel patterns across nearly every surface? Why leave behind elegant columns instead of removing all available stone? Others suggest the chambers served ceremonial or religious purposes. Their immense scale, impressive symmetry, and carefully crafted interiors certainly create an atmosphere that feels almost monumental. Yet no unmistakable altars, inscriptions, or ritual objects have been found to confirm such a function. Another possibility is that they formed part of an enormous underground storage complex or emergency refuge designed to protect valuable resources during times of conflict. The stable temperatures and sheltered environment would have made such use practical. Even so, convincing archaeological evidence supporting this interpretation remains limited. Naturally, the caves have inspired more speculative ideas. Some have imagined that they were constructed by a forgotten civilization possessing engineering techniques lost to history. Others have proposed that hidden chambers still exist beyond the excavated caverns, connected through sealed passageways that remain buried beneath surrounding rock. A few have even suggested that the caves conceal archives or ceremonial spaces yet to be discovered. Archaeologists approach these ideas with understandable caution. While unexplored areas may exist, extraordinary claims require equally extraordinary evidence, and much of the mystery arises simply because so little direct information has survived. Modern investigations continue using laser scanning, geological analysis, and three-dimensional mapping to understand the remarkable precision of the excavation. Every study deepens appreciation for the builder's skill, while reinforcing how many questions remain unanswered. Standing inside one of the Longyou Caves today, surrounded by towering stone walls covered with perfectly ordered chisel marks, it becomes difficult to escape a profound sense of wonder. Every surface reflects deliberate effort. Every pillar speaks of remarkable planning, and every silent chamber hints at a purpose that history has somehow forgotten. Hidden beneath peaceful ponds for untold generations, the caves continue to guard their greatest secret. Perhaps somewhere beyond the walls already explored, or within records that have yet to be uncovered, the true story still waits quietly in the darkness, untouched by time. As the immense chambers of the Longyou Caves leave us wondering how such extraordinary achievements could vanish almost entirely from written memory, our journey now returns to the open landscape, where another ancient settlement has quietly accumulated layer upon layer of forgotten history. Here, beneath two weathered mounds rising from the edge of an Iranian desert plain, thousands of years of human civilization remain buried, preserving clues to a past that is still only partially understood. Near the modern city of Kashan, Tepe Sialk rises gently above the surrounding countryside. At first glance, the site appears deceptively simple. Two broad earthen mounds standing against the dry horizon, their surfaces shaped by centuries of wind and seasonal rain. There are no towering monuments or elaborate stone temples visible from a distance. Yet beneath these quiet hills rests one of the oldest continuously occupied settlements on the Iranian plateau, a place where human communities adapted, prospered, and transformed across nearly 5,000 years. Every layer tells a different story. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence that people first settled here around the 6th millennium BC. Over countless generations, homes were built, abandoned, and rebuilt upon the remains of earlier structures, gradually raising the settlement higher above the surrounding plain. Each occupation left behind fragments of pottery, tools, ornaments, and architecture, creating a remarkable record of cultural development stretching from the Neolithic period into the early Bronze Age. Few sites preserve such a long sequence of human history. Excavations have revealed the gradual emergence of increasingly sophisticated communities. Early mud brick houses gave way to larger structures. Pottery became more refined, decorated with intricate geometric designs and carefully painted animal figures. Metalworking techniques appeared, indicating growing technological skill, while evidence of long-distance trade suggests that Tepe Sialk participated in networks extending far beyond its immediate surroundings. Yet, despite these discoveries, many aspects of the settlement remain mysterious. Among its most intriguing features are two-stepped platforms constructed during the later phases of occupation. Some researchers identify these structures as among the earliest forms of monumental religious architecture in the region, possibly serving as ceremonial centers that anticipated the great temple complexes of later civilizations. Their design reflects careful planning and considerable labor, suggesting that religious or communal life had become increasingly organized. But exactly how these structures were used remains uncertain. No surviving inscriptions explain the rituals that may have taken place there. Archaeologists must instead rely on architectural evidence, nearby artifacts, and comparisons with other ancient settlements. While these approaches provide valuable insights, they cannot fully reconstruct beliefs that disappeared thousands of years before written history became widespread. The cemetery discovered near the settlement introduces another layer of intrigue. Burials contained finely crafted pottery, copper objects, stone tools, jewelry, and other grave goods placed beside the deceased. The differences between individual graves suggest that social distinctions may already have existed within the community. Certain individuals appear to have received considerably richer burials than others, raising questions about leadership, religious authority, or inherited status. How was power organized within such an early society? Did spiritual leaders guide the settlement, or had more formal political structures already begun to emerge? The archaeological evidence provides hints, but few definitive answers. One particularly fascinating aspect of Tepe Sialk is its role during periods of cultural transition. Over thousands of years, pottery styles changed, construction methods evolved, and outside influences gradually appeared. Rather than representing a single civilization frozen in time, the site reflects continuous adaptation as new ideas spread across the Iranian plateau through migration, trade, and cultural exchange. Yet several transitions remain difficult to explain completely. Certain occupational layers reveal abrupt changes in material culture, suggesting that new populations may have arrived or existing communities experienced significant transformation. Whether these changes occurred peacefully through gradual interaction or followed periods of conflict remains a matter of ongoing investigation. Naturally, a settlement of such antiquity has inspired more speculative interpretations. Some have suggested that substantial ceremonial complexes still lie buried beneath the unexcavated portions of the mounds, preserved beneath thousands of years of accumulated earth. Others imagine undiscovered workshops, archives, or burial chambers capable of revealing entirely new chapters of early civilization. While no evidence currently confirms such possibilities, archaeologists readily acknowledge that only part of the site has been explored, leaving significant portions untouched. Modern excavation techniques continue revealing subtle details invisible to earlier researchers. Microscopic analysis of soil, advanced dating methods, and environmental studies have expanded understanding of daily life, agriculture, trade, and craftsmanship. Yet each new discovery seems to generate as many questions as answers. Standing before the quiet mounds of Tepe Sialk today, it is almost impossible to imagine the countless generations who once lived, worked, worshipped, and buried their loved ones here. The landscape appears peaceful, almost ordinary, concealing one of the longest human stories ever preserved beneath layers of earth. Every artifact recovered from the site offers another glimpse into humanity's distant beginnings, but much of the settlement remains hidden below the surface. Somewhere within those ancient layers, another forgotten chapter may still be waiting, preserving secrets from an age when civilization itself was only beginning to take shape. As the ancient layers of Tepe Sialk remind us that entire chapters of human history can remain concealed beneath ordinary landscapes, our journey now moves into the dense forests of Cambodia. Here, towering temples emerge from thick vegetation, their weathered stones rising above the jungle canopy like forgotten monuments to an empire that once commanded extraordinary power. Among them stands a city unlike any other, built with astonishing ambition, occupied for only a brief moment, and then gradually surrendered to silence. Deep within northern Cambodia, far from the crowded avenues of Angkor, the ruins of Koh Ker possess an atmosphere unlike almost any other archaeological site in Southeast Asia. Dense tropical forest surrounds the ancient city, while towering trees cast shifting shadows across broken stairways, scattered sculptures, and moss-covered walls. The sounds of insects and distant birds echo through the vegetation, emphasizing the remarkable stillness that now fills a place once alive with ceremony, politics, and royal authority. At the heart of the complex rises Prasat Tom, an immense stepped pyramid unlike the temple mountains more commonly associated with the Khmer Empire. Built in 7 ascending levels, the structure climbs sharply toward the sky, its massive sandstone blocks creating a geometric silhouette visible above the surrounding forest. From a distance, it resembles an enormous staircase reaching toward the clouds, commanding attention through its scale and unusual design. Its appearance immediately raises questions. Why did the builders abandon the architectural traditions that defined so many earlier Khmer monuments? Why construct such an imposing pyramid in this remote landscape? To understand Koh Ker, it is necessary to step back into the 10th century AD. Around AD 928, King Jayavarman IV made the extraordinary decision to establish Koh Ker as the capital of the Khmer Empire, relocating political authority away from Angkor. Over the following decades, an immense building campaign transformed the region. Temples, reservoirs, roads, palaces, and ceremonial structures appeared with astonishing speed, demonstrating the remarkable organizational ability of the kingdom. For a brief period, Koh Ker stood at the center of one of Southeast Asia's greatest civilizations. Yet, its prominence proved remarkably short-lived. Within little more than 20 years, the royal court returned to Angkor. Construction at Koh Ker slowed dramatically, and the city gradually declined. Although local communities continued occupying parts of the surrounding region, the great ceremonial center never again regained its former importance. That sudden rise, and equally sudden decline, remains one of its greatest mysteries. Historical records provide only partial explanations. Political succession almost certainly influenced the relocation of the capital. Changes in royal leadership often reshaped the priorities of the Khmer Empire, and later rulers may simply have preferred to govern from Angkor. Practical considerations, including access to established infrastructure and water management systems, may also have encouraged the move. Even so, many historians believe these explanations do not fully account for the speed of Koh Ker's abandonment. Why invest enormous resources creating an entirely new capital, only to leave it behind within a single generation? The city's architecture deepens the mystery. Prasat Tom differs significantly from the graceful temple mountains built elsewhere in the Khmer Empire. Its steep, pyramid-like form has prompted comparisons with much older monumental traditions from other regions, though such similarities likely reflect independent architectural choices rather than direct connections. At its summit once stood an enormous sanctuary that may have housed one of the empire's most sacred religious images. Ancient inscriptions refer to a colossal linga installed within the temple, a sacred symbol associated with the Hindu god Shiva. Historical descriptions suggest it ranked among the largest ever created in Khmer history, reinforcing Koh Ker's extraordinary ceremonial importance. Today, that monumental object has disappeared. Whether it was destroyed, relocated, or lost during later centuries remains uncertain. Elsewhere across the city, archaeologists have uncovered enormous stone statues depicting gods, guardians, mythical creatures, and royal figures. Many sculptures display remarkable craftsmanship, yet numerous examples were found broken, damaged, or missing entirely. Some disappeared through centuries of looting, while others may have been intentionally dismantled during periods of political or religious change. The original appearance of many temples can now only be imagined. Koh Ker also demonstrates impressive hydraulic engineering. Large reservoirs, canals, and water control systems reveal sophisticated planning designed to support both ceremonial life and surrounding agriculture. Researchers continue studying whether limitations within these systems contributed to the city's relatively brief period as the imperial capital. Although environmental challenges may have played a role, available evidence has not produced a definitive answer. Modern technology has added another fascinating dimension. Airborne laser scanning has revealed that Koh Ker formed part of a much larger urban landscape than previously recognized. Beneath dense forest cover lie roads, embankments, reservoirs, and additional structures extending well beyond the visible temples. These discoveries suggest that substantial portions of the ancient city remain concealed beneath vegetation, preserving information that traditional surveys could not detect. Each new map reveals another layer of complexity. Naturally, such a remarkable site has inspired more speculative interpretations. Some researchers have wondered whether unexplored temples still contain sealed chambers preserving ritual objects untouched for more than 1,000 years. Others have suggested that hidden inscriptions may survive beneath collapsed masonry, capable of explaining why the capital moved so abruptly. Local traditions occasionally describe certain areas of Koh Ker as places of unusual spiritual presence, where ancient guardians continue watching over forgotten sanctuaries deep within the forest. These stories belong to regional folklore rather than archaeological evidence, yet they reflect the enduring sense of mystery surrounding the site. One feature, in particular, has attracted lasting curiosity. Near Prasat Tom lies a deep circular shaft descending into the earth. Sometimes referred to as the Abyss, its original purpose remains uncertain. Early explorers proposed that it served ceremonial functions connected to royal rituals, while others suggested it may simply have formed part of the temple's architectural design or water management system. Because its depths remain difficult to study completely, the shaft continues to encourage both careful scientific investigation and imaginative speculation. Archaeologists remain cautious, emphasizing that evidence supporting extraordinary claims has yet to emerge. Even after decades of research, much of Koh Ker remains unexplored. Thick vegetation still conceals sections of the ancient city, while buried foundations, collapsed buildings, and undiscovered artifacts continue resting beneath layers of soil. Advances in remote sensing, excavation methods, and environmental analysis promise new discoveries. But every answer seems to introduce another question. Standing atop the towering pyramid today, surrounded by an endless canopy of green, it becomes impossible not to feel the weight of history pressing in from every direction. The forest has reclaimed roads once crowded with royal processions, temples that echoed with sacred ceremonies, and plazas where an empire briefly shifted the center of its world. Koh Ker stands as a reminder that even the most ambitious capitals can fade into silence, leaving only stone, memory, and unanswered questions behind. Somewhere beyond the temples already uncovered, hidden beneath roots, vines, and centuries of accumulated earth, another part of its forgotten story may still be waiting for the moment when history uncovers it once again. As the jungle-covered temples of Koh Ker remind us how entire capitals can disappear beneath vegetation, while preserving only fragments of their story, our journey now moves across the Pacific to another ancient landscape where cultures, beliefs, and civilizations appear to converge. Here, hidden among the volcanic foothills and fertile plains of southern Guatemala, lies a site that has challenged archaeologists for generations, not because of what it reveals, but because of what it refuses to explain. Surrounded by dense greenery, flowing rivers, and distant mountains often veiled by mist, Takalik Abaj emerges gradually from the landscape. Unlike sites dominated by towering pyramids visible from kilometers away, its monuments reveal themselves piece by piece. Weathered stone sculptures rest beside ancient terraces. Massive carved boulders stand partially concealed beneath trees. Earthen platforms stretch across the terrain, blending so naturally with the environment that they almost seem part of the hills themselves. The name Takalik Abaj is often translated as standing stone, in a combination of Quiche Maya and Spanish influences, a fitting description for a place where stone monuments have preserved echoes of a forgotten world for more than 2,000 years. At first glance, the site appears similar to many other ancient settlements in Mesoamerica. Yet, archaeologists quickly realized that Takalik Abaj was different. Very different. The earliest occupation dates to around 1000 BC, placing it among the oldest major centers in the region. Over centuries, the settlement expanded into an important hub connecting communities along Pacific trade routes. Merchants carried obsidian, jade, cacao, ceramics, and other valuable goods through the area, transforming Takalik Abaj into a crossroads of commerce and cultural exchange. But it is not trade alone that makes the site remarkable. The true mystery lies in its identity. Throughout much of the 20th century, archaeologists struggled to determine exactly which civilization had built Takalik Abaj. Certain sculptures displayed unmistakable characteristics associated with the Olmec culture, often regarded as one of Mesoamerica's earliest major civilizations. Massive stone monuments, stylized facial features, and symbolic imagery appeared strikingly similar to artwork found hundreds of kilometers away along the Gulf Coast of Mexico. Yet other discoveries told a different story. Inscriptions, architectural developments, and later monuments displayed unmistakably Maya characteristics. Over time, it became increasingly clear that Takalik Abaj occupied a unique position during a period when cultural boundaries were far more fluid than once believed. Rather than belonging exclusively to one civilization, the site appears to preserve evidence of transition itself. This realization transformed its importance. Instead of representing a single culture, Takalik Abaj may document one of the most significant transformations in ancient Mesoamerican history, the gradual emergence of early Maya civilization from a world already influenced by older traditions. How exactly that transformation occurred remains one of the site's greatest mysteries. Archaeological evidence suggests that Olmec artistic and religious influences were present during the settlement's early phases. Later generations introduced increasingly Maya characteristics while maintaining certain older traditions. The result is a cultural mosaic unlike almost any other site in the region. Was this change driven by migration? Did new populations arrive and merge with existing communities? Or did local societies gradually adopt and transform outside ideas over many generations? Each possibility finds some support within the archaeological record, yet none provides a complete explanation. The monuments themselves deepen the mystery. Across the site stand dozens of carved stelae, altars, and sculptures. Some depict rulers or elite individuals. Others feature symbolic imagery whose meaning remains uncertain. Many monuments show signs of deliberate modification, suggesting that later generations reshaped earlier works to reflect changing political or religious priorities. One monument in particular has attracted considerable attention. Among the discoveries at Takalik Abaj is evidence believed by some researchers to represent one of the earliest known examples of Maya writing. If correct, these inscriptions may offer valuable insight into the development of literacy, administration, and political authority during a pivotal period of cultural evolution. Yet, even these texts provide only fragments. Many inscriptions are damaged, incomplete, or difficult to interpret. Their surviving symbols hint at stories that remain frustratingly out of reach. Religious life presents another puzzle. Takalik Abaj contains ceremonial platforms, ritual deposits, sculptures, and carefully arranged architectural spaces indicating a highly developed spiritual tradition. Excavations have uncovered offerings of jade, ceramics, and other valuable objects placed deliberately within sacred contexts. But what ceremonies unfolded here? What beliefs inspired the placement of these monuments? What stories were told beneath the shadow of these structures more than 2,000 years ago? The answers remain largely unknown. One of the most intriguing discoveries involves elite burials found beneath ceremonial areas. These tombs contained extraordinary artifacts, including jade ornaments, finely crafted ceramics, and symbolic objects reflecting both local and broader Mesoamerican traditions. The wealth of these burials suggests powerful leadership, yet the nature of that authority remains uncertain. Were these rulers, priests, merchant elites, or individuals whose roles combined political, economic, and spiritual power? Without detailed written records, modern researchers can only reconstruct possibilities from material evidence. The surrounding landscape adds further complexity. Takalik Abaj occupies a strategic location connecting coastal regions with highland trade routes. This position undoubtedly contributed to its prosperity, but it also exposed the settlement to a constant flow of people, goods, and ideas. Rather than developing in isolation, the community existed within a dynamic network spanning vast distances. This interconnectedness may explain why the site appears culturally diverse, but it also complicates attempts to identify a single origin or defining identity. The more archaeologists learn about Takalik Abaj, the less it resembles conventional categories. Instead, it appears as a place where civilizations met, interacted, and evolved. Naturally, such a unique site has encouraged more speculative interpretations. Some researchers have wondered whether substantial portions of the settlement remain hidden beneath unexplored terraces and forested areas. Remote sensing surveys suggest that additional structures may still lie buried beneath centuries of accumulated soil and vegetation. Could undiscovered inscriptions await excavation? Might additional tombs contain names, dates, or historical accounts capable of clarifying the site's role in the emergence of Maya civilization? These possibilities remain entirely plausible. Other theories move further beyond established archaeology. A few have suggested that Takalik Abaj functioned as a ceremonial center where multiple cultural groups gathered for rituals and political negotiations, creating a neutral space that transcended traditional boundaries. While evidence confirms extensive interaction between different communities, the full extent of those relationships remains uncertain. Local traditions have also contributed their own interpretations. Stories passed through generations occasionally describe ancient sacred places hidden within the surrounding landscape, where powerful forces once connected humanity with the natural world. Such traditions belong to cultural memory rather than archaeological proof, yet they highlight the enduring significance of the region long after its original builders disappeared from history. Modern technology continues revealing new details. Ground-penetrating surveys, environmental studies, advanced dating methods, and ongoing excavations have expanded understanding of the site's chronology and development. Yet each discovery seems to expose another layer of complexity rather than resolving the central mystery. Takalik Abaj refuses to fit neatly into established narratives. It stands at the crossroads of cultures, chronologies, and identities. Perhaps that is what makes it so compelling. Standing among its weathered monuments today, surrounded by dense vegetation and the distant sound of flowing water, it becomes easy to imagine generations of merchants, rulers, artisans, priests, and travelers passing through this remarkable place. The stones preserve evidence of transformation on a civilizational scale, yet they remain remarkably quiet about the individuals who experienced it. Somewhere beneath the unexcavated terraces, hidden among broken monuments or buried within forgotten tombs, additional clues may still rest undisturbed. They may reveal how one of Mesoamerica's most important cultural transitions truly unfolded, or they may deepen the mystery even further. For now, Takalik Abaj remains suspended between what is known and what is merely suggested by fragments of stone, preserving one of the ancient world's most intriguing unanswered stories. The site offers glimpses of civilizations in motion, cultures intersecting, and identities evolving, but the complete picture remains just beyond reach, waiting patiently beneath the soil for the next discovery to emerge from the shadows of time. As Takalik Abaj reminds us that civilizations rarely emerge in isolation, our journey now continues deeper into the ancient Maya world, where towering monuments still stand in quiet forests, preserving stories carved into stone with extraordinary precision. Yet even where history seems written before our eyes, silence remains. Every inscription answers one question while raising another, and every weathered monument hints that part of the story has been lost forever. Hidden within the lush tropical lowlands of eastern Guatemala, Quiriguá rests beside the gentle flow of the Motagua River. Dense vegetation surrounds the ancient city, while towering ceiba trees cast long shadows across open plazas where rulers, priests, merchants, and pilgrims once gathered. The forest seems to breathe around the ruins, filling the air with birdsong, insects, and the quiet rustle of leaves. Time has softened the edges of temples and courtyards, but the city's greatest treasures still rise proudly above the earth. They are its monuments. Unlike many Maya cities celebrated for soaring pyramids, Quiriguá is renowned for something equally remarkable: its colossal stone stelae. Carved from massive blocks of red sandstone, these towering monuments are among the tallest freestanding stone sculptures ever created in the ancient Americas. Some reach more than 10 meters into the air, their surfaces covered with astonishingly detailed hieroglyphs, portraits of rulers, celestial symbols, and sacred imagery. Standing before one of these monuments is an unforgettable experience. The figures seem almost alive despite having endured more than 1,000 years of tropical weather. Every fold of ceremonial clothing, every elaborate headdress, and every carefully carved symbol reflects extraordinary craftsmanship. Even after centuries of erosion, the precision remains breathtaking. Yet these magnificent monuments preserve a history filled with mystery. Quiriguá began as a relatively modest settlement around the 2nd century AD. Its location along the Motagua River gave it strategic importance, connecting the Caribbean coast with the interior highlands. Valuable resources such as jade, obsidian, cacao, exotic feathers, and marine shells passed through the region, transforming Quiriguá into an important trading center despite its comparatively small population. For much of its early history, however, Quiriguá lived under the shadow of a far more powerful neighbor. That neighbor was Copan, located in present-day Honduras. Historical inscriptions indicate that Quiriguá initially functioned as a subordinate kingdom, its rulers acknowledging the authority of Copan's kings. The political relationship appeared stable for decades, perhaps even centuries. Then, everything changed. In AD 738, Quiriguá's ruler, known today as Kak Tiliu Chan Yopat, achieved one of the most astonishing political reversals in Maya history. According to inscriptions carved on the city's monuments, the king of Copan, Uaxaclajun Uba'a Kawil, often called 18 Rabbit by modern scholars, was captured during a conflict and later sacrificed. The event stunned the Maya world. How could a relatively small kingdom overthrow one of the greatest dynasties of the classic Maya period? Archaeologists continue searching for answers. Some researchers believe Quiriguá secured powerful political alliances with larger regional kingdoms, particularly Calakmul, one of Copan's principal rivals. By supporting Quiriguá's rebellion, a distant superpower could weaken an important enemy without direct military confrontation. Others argue that economic factors played an equally significant role. Control of the Motagua River meant control over valuable trade routes, especially the transport of jade from nearby quarries. Whoever dominated this corridor possessed considerable wealth and political influence. Quiriguá's growing economic importance may have allowed it to challenge Copan at precisely the right moment. Even so, the exact circumstances surrounding the conflict remain uncertain. No detailed battlefield accounts survive. The inscriptions celebrate victory, but reveal little about military strategy, alliances, or negotiations. As with so much ancient history, the surviving records tell only the version their creators wished future generations to remember. Following its unexpected triumph, Quiriguá entered a remarkable period of prosperity. Many of its most impressive monuments were erected during the decades after the victory. The enormous stelae served not merely as historical records, but as powerful declarations of legitimacy. Every carved monument reinforced the authority of the ruling dynasty, while connecting political events with sacred cosmology, astronomy, and divine ancestry. The hieroglyphic texts themselves remain among the site's greatest treasures. Although Maya writing has been largely deciphered, many passages continue to challenge specialists. Weathering has erased portions of inscriptions, while certain symbolic expressions remain difficult to interpret completely. Some monuments appear to describe ceremonies whose meanings are only partially understood, combining historical events with mythology in ways that blur the line between political history and sacred tradition. Every newly translated glyph adds another piece to the puzzle. Yet many pieces remain missing. Another extraordinary feature of Quiriguá is its remarkable collection of zoomorphic sculptures. Unlike the tall stelae, these immense carved boulders combine images of animals, supernatural beings, mountains, and mythological creatures into highly intricate compositions. Their surfaces twist and curve in every direction, encouraging viewers to walk completely around them rather than observing from a single angle. Their symbolism continues to inspire debate. Some archaeologists believe the sculptures represent sacred mountains associated with creation myths. Others interpret them as symbolic entrances connecting the human world with the supernatural realm. Certain carvings appear to depict rulers emerging from fantastic creatures, perhaps illustrating ceremonies intended to reinforce divine authority. Without surviving explanations from the artists themselves, their deepest meanings remain uncertain. The city's architectural layout presents additional questions. Compared with many major Maya capitals, Quiriguá contains relatively few massive pyramids. Instead, the ceremonial plazas themselves dominate the landscape, providing open spaces where the monumental sculptures could be viewed from great distances. Was this unusual design intentional? Did the monuments themselves become the city's principal ceremonial focus? Many researchers believe so, though exactly how these spaces were used during public rituals remains open to interpretation. The surrounding environment has also shaped Quiriguá's history. The Motagua River brought prosperity through trade, but also posed constant challenges. Seasonal flooding periodically altered the landscape, depositing fertile sediments while occasionally damaging buildings. Archaeologists continue investigating how ancient engineers managed water, protected important structures, and adapted to changing environmental conditions over centuries. Perhaps the city's greatest mystery concerns its decline. By the 9th century AD, construction largely ceased. Like many other classic Maya centers, Quiriguá experienced a gradual reduction in political influence. Monument carving stopped. Public ceremonies diminished. Population declined. Eventually, the forest began reclaiming plazas once crowded with nobles, artisans, merchants, and priests. Why? The answer remains one of archaeology's most enduring questions. Climate change, prolonged drought, shifting trade routes, political instability, environmental degradation, warfare, and changing religious systems have all been proposed as contributing factors. Increasingly, researchers believe no single explanation can account for the widespread transformation that affected much of the Maya world during this period. Instead, multiple pressures likely combined over generations, slowly reshaping society until once powerful kingdoms could no longer sustain themselves. Even today, significant portions of Quiriguá remain only partially explored. Modern technologies, including LiDAR scanning, geophysical surveys, and environmental analysis, continue revealing buried platforms, ancient pathways, and possible residential districts extending beyond the visible ceremonial core. Dense tropical vegetation conceals features that may still transform current understanding of the city's true size and influence. Naturally, a place so rich in symbolism has encouraged more speculative ideas. Some researchers have wondered whether undiscovered monuments still lie buried beneath accumulated soil, preserving inscriptions capable of filling major gaps in Maya history. Others suggest hidden tombs belonging to Quiriguá's rulers may remain undiscovered beneath ceremonial platforms, waiting to reveal new information about royal succession, political alliances, and religious practices. Local traditions have also contributed their own sense of wonder to the landscape. Stories passed through nearby communities occasionally describe the ancient city as a place where the past never completely disappeared, where carved stones continue watching silently over the forest that gradually reclaimed them. Such traditions belong to cultural memory rather than archaeological evidence, yet they capture the remarkable atmosphere visitors often experience among the towering monuments. As the towering monuments of Quiriguá remind us that even stone cannot preserve every chapter of history, our journey now turns toward a civilization that left behind an even deeper enigma. Its cities were carefully planned, its engineers mastered techniques centuries ahead of their time, and its people traded across vast distances. Yet unlike many ancient kingdoms, they left no readable chronicles behind. Their greatest achievements still surround us in silence, and among them, few inspire more wonder than the remarkable reservoirs of Dholavira. Far out on Qadir Island, within the vast white salt flats of the Great Rann of Kutch in western India, the ruins of Dholavira rise from an unforgiving landscape. For much of the year, the surrounding terrain appears almost otherworldly. During the dry season, brilliant sunlight reflects from endless salt plains stretching toward the horizon. During the monsoon, seasonal waters briefly transform the region before retreating once again, leaving behind an environment where survival has always depended upon one precious resource: water. Even today, the contrast is striking. Life flourishes only where water can be found, and nowhere is that reality more evident than within the ancient city itself. Hidden beneath weathered stone walls and broad ceremonial spaces lies one of the most sophisticated water management systems ever constructed by the Indus Valley civilization. Unlike many ancient cities built beside mighty rivers, Dholavira occupied a far more challenging location. Although two seasonal streams, known today as the Mansar and Manhar, flowed nearby during periods of rainfall, they could not provide a constant supply throughout the year. The people who settled here understood that survival would require extraordinary planning. They responded with remarkable ingenuity. Beginning around 3000 BC, the inhabitants designed a vast network of channels, dams, stone-lined reservoirs, wells, and drainage systems capable of capturing nearly every available drop of rainwater and seasonal runoff. Rather than allowing precious water to disappear across the surrounding landscape, they redirected it into carefully engineered storage basins that surrounded and protected the city. The scale of this achievement is difficult to overstate. Archaeologists have identified at least 16 enormous reservoirs integrated directly into the city's defensive walls and urban layout. Some were carved deep into bedrock, while others were constructed using carefully fitted stone masonry. Massive staircases descended toward the water, allowing access even as water levels changed throughout the seasons. Seen from above, the reservoirs dominate the city's design. They were not secondary features added after construction. They were fundamental to the city's identity. This raises one of the first great mysteries surrounding Dholavira. How did people living more than 4,000 years ago acquire such advanced knowledge of hydraulic engineering? The builders understood gradients, controlled water flow with remarkable precision, prevented erosion, and created systems capable of functioning through dramatic seasonal changes. Every reservoir appears carefully positioned to maximize storage while minimizing waste. Even modern engineers have expressed admiration for the efficiency of the design. Yet despite this remarkable accomplishment, The civilization responsible remains strangely anonymous. The Indus Valley civilization stretched across enormous areas of present-day India and Pakistan, supporting cities such as Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Rakhigarhi, Lothal, and Dholavira. Its people developed standardized weights, sophisticated urban planning, impressive sanitation systems, and extensive trade networks connecting Mesopotamia, the Persian Gulf, and Central Asia. Still, one fundamental mystery remains unsolved. Their writing cannot yet be read. Hundreds of seals, inscriptions, and carved symbols have been discovered throughout the civilization, including one of the most famous finds at Dholavira itself, a large signboard containing enormous symbols once displayed above one of the city's gateways. Its purpose remains uncertain. Was it the city's name? A royal proclamation? A religious message? Without deciphering the script, archaeologists can only speculate. Every discovery raises the same frustrating reality. The people of Dholavira left countless messages behind. We simply cannot understand what they say. That silence transforms even ordinary discoveries into enduring mysteries. The reservoirs themselves continue presenting unanswered questions. While their practical purpose is obvious, some researchers believe they may also have held ceremonial significance. Several reservoirs occupy highly prominent positions within the city, rather than being hidden behind walls or restricted to purely functional areas. Broad stairways descend with almost monumental elegance, suggesting that water itself may have possessed symbolic importance beyond simple survival. Did religious ceremonies take place beside these great basins? Were seasonal floods celebrated through public rituals? Could water have represented spiritual renewal as well as physical necessity? No surviving text provides an answer. The city's remarkable planning deepens the intrigue. Dholavira was divided into carefully organized districts, including a citadel, middle town, lower town, and extensive fortifications constructed from stone rather than the baked bricks more common elsewhere within the Indus Valley civilization. Wide streets intersected with impressive precision. Public spaces appear deliberately arranged. Drainage systems functioned alongside water storage infrastructure in a level of urban integration that would remain rare for centuries. Who coordinated such ambitious planning? Did powerful rulers govern the city? Was authority shared among merchant elites? Did religious leaders oversee construction? Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, no monumental statues of kings have been identified, and no deciphered inscriptions describe political authority. The society that built Dholavira remains curiously elusive. Its achievements are unmistakable. Its leaders remain almost invisible. Trade offers another fascinating window into the city's importance. Archaeologists have recovered beads crafted from carnelian, shell ornaments, copper tools, ceramics, and evidence of workshops producing finely worked goods for exchange across distant regions. Marine shells arrived from coastal areas. Raw materials traveled hundreds of kilometers. Merchants likely crossed deserts, mountains, and rivers connecting Dholavira to one of the largest economic networks of the ancient world. Yet even here, mysteries remain. Exactly how were these vast commercial relationships organized? How did information travel between cities separated by enormous distances? What language united traders from different regions? Again, the undeciphered script leaves historians searching for answers hidden within symbols they cannot yet interpret. Then comes the question that shadows nearly every discussion of the Indus Valley civilization. Why did it decline? Around 1900 BC, profound changes began affecting many Indus settlements. Urban populations decreased, large-scale construction slowed, long-distance trade diminished. Some cities were gradually abandoned. Others survived in reduced form before eventually disappearing altogether. For generations, scholars proposed dramatic explanations involving invading armies or sudden catastrophes. Modern research paints a more complex picture. Evidence increasingly points toward gradual environmental change. Shifting river systems altered water supplies. Monsoon patterns weakened over long periods. Agricultural productivity may have declined as climate slowly transformed the landscape. Communities adapted where possible, relocating toward more reliable water sources as environmental conditions changed. Yet Dholavira presents its own unique puzzle. Its extraordinary reservoirs suggest remarkable resilience. If any city possessed the engineering knowledge to withstand prolonged water shortages, surely it would have been this one. So why was it eventually abandoned? Some researchers argue that even the most advanced hydraulic system cannot compensate indefinitely for centuries of environmental transformation. Others suggest economic networks collapsed alongside changing climates, reducing the city's strategic importance. Still others believe multiple pressures combined gradually over generations until maintaining urban life became increasingly difficult. No single explanation satisfies every piece of available evidence. Naturally, a place as remarkable as Dholavira has inspired more speculative theories. Some have suggested that additional reservoirs remain buried beneath accumulated sediments, preserving untouched engineering works still waiting to be uncovered. Others wonder whether sealed chambers connected to the city's water system may contain inscriptions capable of helping decipher the Indus script itself. A few enthusiasts have proposed that the precise geometry of the reservoirs reflects astronomical knowledge or sacred mathematical principles embedded within the city's design. Archaeologists examine such possibilities carefully. Certain architectural alignments undoubtedly existed, but whether they carried symbolic meaning, practical necessity, or both remains an active subject of research. The greatest mystery requires no extraordinary claims. How could a civilization so sophisticated disappear from historical memory almost completely? Unlike Egypt, whose hieroglyphs eventually yielded their secrets, or Mesopotamia, whose cuneiform tablets revealed kings, merchants, and poets, the people of Dholavira remain largely voiceless. As the reservoirs of Dholavira remind us that even the most brilliant engineering cannot fully explain the civilizations that created it, our journey now continues across the Indian subcontinent to another forgotten city, one whose mysteries are written not in towering monuments or undeciphered symbols, but in its astonishing precision. From above, its ancient walls form an almost perfect geometric pattern, hinting at careful planning, sophisticated governance, and ambitions that still challenge modern understanding. Near the modern city of Bhubaneswar, in the Indian state of Odisha, lies Sisupalgarh, a site that appears remarkably ordinary until viewed from the air. Dense vegetation, cultivated fields, and scattered villages surround a vast square enclosure whose outlines remain visible after more than 2,000 years. Unlike dramatic ruins crowned with towering temples or colossal statues, Sisupalgarh conceals much of its story beneath the earth itself. Only fragments of stone pillars, weathered fortifications, and low mounds interrupt the landscape, offering subtle clues to the extraordinary city that once flourished here. Its silence is deceptive. Beneath the surface rests one of the earliest and most carefully planned urban settlements ever discovered in South Asia. Archaeologists believe Sisupalgarh emerged around the 3rd century BC, although evidence suggests that people occupied the surrounding area even earlier. At its height, the city may have covered nearly 3 square kilometers, enclosed within massive earthen ramparts reinforced with laterite stone. The layout immediately captures attention. Viewed from above, the fortifications form an almost perfect square, each side measuring roughly 1.2 kilometers in length. The walls were punctuated by 8 carefully positioned gateways, 2 on each side, arranged with extraordinary symmetry. Wide roads extended inward from these entrances, intersecting one another in an organized grid that divided the city into planned districts. Such careful design raises immediate questions. Who conceived such a remarkably ordered city? How were thousands of workers coordinated to construct walls, gates, roads, drainage systems, and residential districts with such precision more than 2,000 years ago? Unlike many ancient settlements that grew gradually over generations, Sisupalgarh appears to have been planned with unusual consistency from an early stage. This suggests centralized authority, sophisticated administration, and a clear vision for urban development. Yet, the identity of those responsible remains uncertain. Many scholars associate Sisupalgarh with the ancient kingdom of Kalinga, a powerful state known from historical texts and inscriptions. Kalinga occupies an important place in Indian history, particularly because of the famous war fought against Emperor Ashoka during the 3rd century BC. Historical records describe the devastating conflict and Ashoka's profound transformation afterward, leading him to embrace nonviolence and Buddhism. Could Sisupalgarh have been one of Kalinga's principal urban centers? Many archaeologists believe so. The chronology aligns remarkably well, and the site's scale certainly matches what might be expected from a major political and administrative capital. Yet, direct evidence identifying the city with complete certainty remains elusive. No inscription discovered at the site explicitly names Sisupalgarh as the capital described in ancient sources. The mystery continues. Excavations have revealed broad streets, carefully constructed drainage systems, workshops, domestic buildings, defensive walls, and evidence of long-term occupation extending well into the early centuries. A.D. Pottery, iron tools, beads, ornaments, coins, terracotta figurines, and imported goods all suggest a prosperous and highly organized community. Trade clearly played an important role. Situated near important routes connecting inland regions with the eastern coastline, Sisupalgarh likely served as a center for commerce linking diverse cultures across the Indian subcontinent. Goods arriving from distant regions would have introduced new ideas alongside valuable materials, contributing to the city's prosperity. Yet, many aspects of daily life remain difficult to reconstruct. Unlike cities where inscriptions describe rulers, laws, or religious ceremonies, Sisupalgarh speaks primarily through its architecture and artifacts. The people themselves remain largely anonymous. Who governed this remarkable settlement? Did kings reside within its walls? Were merchants the true source of political power? Or did councils of local elites oversee civic administration? The archaeological evidence provides possibilities rather than certainty. One of the site's most intriguing discoveries is a series of impressive stone pillar bases found within the central area. These enormous columns once supported a substantial structure unlike ordinary residential buildings. Its purpose remains debated. Some researchers believe it formed part of a royal palace or administrative hall where rulers conducted official business. Others suggest it may have served ceremonial, religious, or public functions. Without surviving inscriptions or intact architecture, the original appearance of the building can only be imagined. Equally fascinating are the city's fortifications. The defensive walls were massive by the standards of their time, surrounded in places by moats and strengthened through careful engineering. Yet, despite their obvious military value, the city appears to have maintained open access through its 8 monumental gateways. Why construct such carefully fortified walls while simultaneously preserving broad entrances? Some archaeologists argue that the gates reflected confidence rather than vulnerability. They projected authority, welcomed commerce, and demonstrated the city's importance. Others wonder whether ceremonial processions, religious festivals, or political gatherings required such monumental entrances. Again, certainty remains beyond reach. The remarkable symmetry of Sisupalgarh has inspired decades of study. Its geometric layout appears almost mathematical. The positioning of roads, gateways, and internal division suggests standardized planning that required surveying techniques of considerable sophistication. How did ancient engineers achieve such precision? Did they employ astronomical observations when laying out the city's boundaries, were measurements based upon standardized units now lost to history? Some researchers have proposed that celestial alignments influenced portions of the city's design, though evidence remains inconclusive. Certain orientations correspond generally with cardinal directions, but whether these relationships carried symbolic meaning or reflected practical surveying methods continues to be debated. The city's longevity presents another puzzle. Archaeological evidence suggests Sisupalgarh remained occupied for several centuries, surviving periods of political change that transformed much of the surrounding region. Communities adapted. Buildings were modified. Trade continued. Life persisted. Yet eventually, the city declined. Exactly why remains uncertain. Unlike settlements destroyed suddenly through warfare or natural catastrophe, Sisupalgarh appears to have experienced a gradual reduction in importance. Trade routes shifted. Political centers evolved. Regional power structures changed. The once carefully maintained urban landscape slowly gave way to abandonment. Did environmental change contribute? Perhaps. Nearby rivers altered their courses over time, potentially affecting agriculture and transportation. Economic priorities may have shifted toward emerging centers elsewhere. Changing dynasties could also have redirected administrative authority away from Sisupalgarh. None of these explanations fully accounts for every archaeological observation. As so often happens in ancient history, multiple factors likely combined across generations. Religion introduces another layer of mystery. Excavations have uncovered evidence suggesting the presence of diverse religious traditions throughout the city's occupation. Buddhism, Jainism, and early forms of Hindu worship all flourished within the broader region during this period. Yet, relatively few monumental religious structures have been identified within Sisupalgarh itself. Why were temples constructed primarily from perishable materials? Have they simply not yet been excavated? Or did religious life unfold differently here than in later urban centers dominated by monumental shrines? The archaeological record remains incomplete. Every excavation uncovers additional fragments while leaving larger questions unresolved. Modern technology has transformed understanding of the site. Satellite imagery, aerial photography, geophysical surveys, and ground-penetrating radar have revealed buried roads, hidden architectural features, and unexplored sectors extending across the ancient city. What appears quiet at ground level becomes remarkably complex when viewed from above. Entire neighborhoods remain concealed beneath cultivated fields. Walls continue beneath modern vegetation. Foundations, invisible to the naked eye, emerge through remote sensing technologies. These discoveries reinforce a simple reality. Much of Sisupalgarh remains buried. Naturally, a city of such sophistication has inspired more speculative interpretations. Some researchers have wondered whether substantial public buildings remain hidden beneath the central mound, preserved beneath layers of accumulated soil. As the perfectly planned streets of Sisupalgarh remind us that entire cities can disappear while their remarkable designs remain etched into the landscape, our journey now crosses the waters of the Indian Ocean to another forgotten capital. Here, towering temples, enormous reservoirs, and finely carved statues still stand among dense tropical forests, preserving the memory of a kingdom whose brilliance once illuminated an entire island before gradually fading into silence. In the heart of Sri Lanka's north-central plains lies Polonnaruwa, a city where stone and nature have reached an uneasy harmony. Ancient walls emerge between towering trees, vines weave through abandoned shrines, and broad reservoirs reflect clouds that drift slowly across the tropical sky. At sunrise, a gentle mist settles over weathered brick foundations and silent courtyards, softening the outlines of buildings that once formed one of South Asia's greatest royal capitals. The atmosphere is peaceful, yet beneath that calm rests the memory of extraordinary ambition. Polonnaruwa rose to prominence during the 11th century AD, following the decline of the older royal capital of Anuradhapura. Over the following centuries, successive rulers transformed the city into an impressive political, religious, and engineering center. Massive palaces, Buddhist monasteries, ceremonial halls, temples, gardens, and sophisticated irrigation systems spread across the surrounding plain, reflecting both royal power and remarkable technical skill. Among the city's greatest achievements was its relationship with water. Like several ancient civilizations we have already explored, the people of Polonnaruwa understood that controlling water meant controlling the future. Enormous reservoirs, known locally as tanks, collected seasonal rainfall and supplied agriculture throughout the surrounding countryside. The largest of these, the Parikrama Samudra, remains one of the greatest artificial reservoirs ever constructed in the ancient world. Its name translates as the Sea of Parikrama. Standing beside its vast shoreline, it is easy to understand why. The reservoir stretches so far that its opposite bank often disappears into the horizon, creating the illusion of an inland sea. Historical records attribute its construction to King Parikramabahu I during the 12th century AD, a ruler remembered for declaring that not a single drop of rainwater should flow into the ocean without first serving the people. Whether every detail of that statement reflects historical reality or later admiration, the engineering achievement itself remains undeniable. Thousands of workers constructed embankments, canals, sluice gates, and distribution systems capable of sustaining agriculture across enormous areas. Even today, portions of these ancient hydraulic works continue functioning. Yet, impressive engineering is only one part of Polonnaruwa's mystery. The city's monuments reveal another. Perhaps no site captures the imagination more than the Galvihara, where 4 immense Buddha figures were carved directly into a single granite outcrop. The sculptures display extraordinary craftsmanship, each figure expressing serenity through subtle facial features and graceful proportions. One depicts meditation, another reclining in peaceful repose, while a standing figure has inspired generations of debate. At first glance, the standing statue appears calm. Look longer, however, and something changes. Its expression seems unexpectedly complex. Some observers perceive quiet sorrow. Others see profound contemplation. Still others interpret gentle compassion. The ambiguity has fascinated historians, artists, and visitors alike. Did the sculptor intentionally create an expression capable of changing according to the viewer? Or has centuries of weathering altered delicate features, creating emotional qualities never originally intended? There is no consensus. The mystery remains carved into the stone itself. Elsewhere throughout Polonnaruwa stand the remains of palaces whose original scale still astonishes. According to historical tradition, the royal palace of King Parikramabahu once rose 7 stories high and contained 1,000 rooms. Modern archaeology suggests these descriptions may contain elements of royal exaggeration, yet even the surviving ruins reveal an immense and sophisticated complex. Thick brick walls still stand several meters high. Massive foundations indicate buildings of exceptional size. What did the complete palace truly look like? No detailed architectural drawings survive. Fire, abandonment, weather, and time erased nearly everything above ground, leaving archaeologists to reconstruct the original structures from scattered evidence. The city's religious life presents equally intriguing questions. Polonnaruwa flourished during a period when different Buddhist traditions coexisted alongside Hindu influences introduced through regional political connections. Temples, dedicated to multiple faiths, stood within the same capital, reflecting a complex cultural landscape rather than rigid religious separation. How did these traditions interact? Did they compete for royal patronage? Or did they influence one another in ways no surviving records fully describe? Archaeological evidence offers fascinating clues but few definitive answers. One particularly mysterious structure is known as the Vatadaj. This beautifully preserved circular relic shrine displays remarkable symmetry and intricate stone carving. 4 stairways approach the central chamber from the cardinal directions, guarded by elegant moonstones and guardian figures carved with exceptional precision. Its design feels almost perfectly balanced. Some researchers have suggested that astronomical observations may have influenced portions of its orientation, while others emphasize symbolic religious geometry common within Buddhist architecture. The available evidence supports careful planning. Whether deeper astronomical meaning existed remains uncertain. The city's decline introduces perhaps its greatest historical puzzle. By the late 13th century AD, Polonnaruwa's political importance had diminished dramatically. Royal authority shifted toward the island's southwestern regions. The capital was gradually abandoned. Nature slowly reclaimed streets once crowded with monks, merchants, craftsmen, and royal officials. Why? The answer appears more complex than a single catastrophe. Political instability certainly played a role. Repeated invasions from southern India disrupted the kingdom over several generations. Changing trade routes altered regional economics. Internal succession disputes weakened centralized authority. Environmental pressures may also have affected agricultural productivity, despite the city's impressive irrigation network. Rather than collapsing suddenly, Polonnaruwa appears to have experienced a gradual transformation as political priorities evolved elsewhere. Even so, several mysteries remain unresolved. Why were certain monumental structures carefully maintained, while others fell rapidly into disrepair? Why do historical chronicles emphasize some rulers while offering surprisingly limited information about others? What important events escaped written history altogether? Modern archaeology continues uncovering new evidence. Excavations reveal previously unknown buildings hidden beneath accumulated soil. Ground-penetrating surveys identify buried foundations extending beyond visible ruins. Chemical analysis of ancient reservoirs provides insight into agricultural practices and environmental change. Each discovery enriches understanding while revealing fresh uncertainties. Naturally, Polonnaruwa has inspired more speculative interpretations as well. Some visitors have wondered whether undiscovered royal chambers remain concealed beneath collapsed palace foundations. Others imagine hidden tunnels once connected major temples and administrative buildings, allowing secure movement during times of conflict. A few researchers have suggested that portions of the ancient water system remain unexplored, preserving engineering techniques not yet fully understood. While no convincing evidence confirms such ideas, archaeologists readily acknowledge that large areas of the ancient capital remain only partially investigated. The forest still conceals many secrets. Walking through Polonnaruwa today creates a remarkable sense of continuity between past and present. Monkeys climb across ancient walls. Tropical birds nest among temple stones. Giant reservoirs continue reflecting the same skies that inspired engineers nearly 1,000 years ago. The city no longer serves kings, yet its carefully carved monuments, sophisticated hydraulic systems, and peaceful shrines continue preserving the ambitions of a civilization that mastered architecture, engineering, and sacred art with extraordinary confidence. Still, much of its story remains unfinished. Every weathered inscription contains gaps. Every buried foundation suggests another forgotten building. Every silent corridor hints at voices that history can no longer recover. Standing among the tranquil ruins, surrounded by forests that slowly reclaimed an imperial capital, one cannot help but wonder how many chapters of Polonnaruwa's remarkable past still lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting patiently for another discovery to reveal what centuries of silence have carefully protected. As the tranquil ruins of Polonnaruwa remind us that even magnificent capitals can slowly disappear beneath forests and fading memory, our journey now leaves behind abandoned cities and turns toward a mystery unlike any other. This time, there are no towering monuments, no visible ruins, and no weathered temples waiting to be explored. Instead, the greatest clue may be the absence of all evidence, hidden somewhere within one of the world's most remote and expansive landscapes. Across the endless grasslands of Mongolia, rolling hills stretch toward distant mountain ranges beneath an immense open sky. Winds sweep across the steppe without interruption, bending tall grasses in slow, rhythmic waves. Horses still roam freely across the same plains where armies once gathered under the command of one of history's most formidable leaders. Here, the landscape seems almost timeless, preserving an atmosphere that has changed remarkably little over the centuries. Somewhere within this vast wilderness, many believe, lies one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries: the final resting place of Genghis Khan. Despite founding the largest contiguous land empire in recorded history, the Mongol ruler's burial place has never been conclusively identified. More than 800 years after his death in AD 1227, no verified tomb has been found, no royal chamber has been excavated, and no inscription has revealed its location. It is a mystery unlike almost any other. Ordinarily, rulers of such enormous influence left behind monumental tombs designed to proclaim their achievements for eternity. Egyptian pharaohs built pyramids. Chinese emperors created underground cities guarded by thousands of terracotta warriors. Countless kings and emperors commissioned elaborate mausoleums that still dominate their landscapes today. Genghis Khan appears to have done precisely the opposite. Historical accounts suggest that secrecy surrounded his burial from the very beginning. According to traditional narratives recorded in later Mongolian and Persian sources, the funeral procession traveled in complete confidentiality, carrying the ruler's body to an unknown location. Several stories claim that anyone who encountered the procession was killed to preserve the secret. Other accounts describe the burial party themselves being eliminated afterward, ensuring that no living witness could reveal the location. Whether every detail of these accounts reflects historical reality remains uncertain. Many were written generations after Genghis Khan's death, blending historical memory with legend. Yet they reveal an enduring theme. His tomb was meant to remain hidden. One of the strongest historical traditions places the burial somewhere within the sacred Burkhan-Khaldun mountain region, an area deeply connected with Genghis Khan throughout his life. According to Mongolian chronicles, he regarded the mountain with profound respect, often seeking refuge there during his early years and later honoring it through ritual. The landscape itself seems well suited to conceal such a secret. Dense forests cover steep valleys. Rocky ridges overlook remote rivers. Large portions remain difficult to access even today. Some areas continue receiving special cultural protection, reflecting both historical importance and respect for Mongolian traditions. Yet, despite decades of investigation, no confirmed royal tomb has emerged. Modern archaeology has approached the mystery with increasing caution. Rather than relying solely on excavation, researchers have employed satellite imagery, aerial photography, ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR scanning, and non-invasive geophysical surveys to search vast areas without disturbing culturally sensitive sites. Several promising anomalies have been identified over the years. None has produced definitive evidence. Part of the challenge lies in balancing scientific curiosity with cultural respect. Many Mongolians believe the location of Genghis Khan's grave should remain undisturbed. For some, preserving the secrecy of the burial honors the wishes of both the ruler and his descendants. As a result, archaeologists often favor remote sensing technologies over intrusive excavation, allowing research to continue while respecting long-standing traditions. The historical sources themselves provide only limited guidance. The Secret History of the Mongols, one of the earliest surviving accounts connected to Genghis Khan's life, offers remarkably little information about the burial itself. Other chronicles written in Persia and China contain scattered references but differ in important details. Some mention mountains. Others mention rivers. None provides precise directions. Naturally, this uncertainty has encouraged numerous theories. One possibility suggests the tomb lies beneath an unremarkable natural hillside, carefully concealed without constructing an obvious monument. Unlike the elaborate mausoleums of other empires, a modest burial hidden within the landscape would explain why no visible ruins have ever been identified. Another theory proposes that the burial site was intentionally disguised after construction. According to one enduring legend, thousands of horses were driven repeatedly across the ground to erase every trace of excavation, leaving the surrounding terrain looking completely untouched. Although dramatic, historians cannot verify whether this event actually occurred. Even so, the story reflects the determination to preserve absolute secrecy. Other traditions claim that trees were planted over the burial site until the forest concealed all evidence of human activity. Again, there is no archaeological confirmation, but the concept remains plausible enough to attract continuing interest. Some researchers have explored the possibility that the tomb contains extraordinary treasures. Historical records describe the immense wealth accumulated during the Mongol conquests, including gold, silver, precious stones, ceremonial objects, weapons, and luxury goods gathered from across Asia and Europe. Was any of that wealth buried alongside Genghis Khan? No one knows. Unlike royal tombs that have been excavated elsewhere, the contents of this burial remain entirely speculative. Some historians caution against assuming enormous treasure was included at all, noting that Mongol burial customs often emphasized simplicity compared with other imperial traditions. The greatest mystery may not concern riches but ritual. Exactly how did the Mongols bury their supreme ruler? Archaeological evidence from elite Mongol burials reveals a variety of practices, yet none can confidently be linked to Genghis Khan himself. Without locating the tomb, questions surrounding funeral ceremonies, grave construction, symbolic objects, and royal traditions remain unanswered. Even the broader landscape contributes to the mystery. Satellite surveys have identified ancient roads, stone features, burial mounds, and previously unknown archaeological sites across Mongolia. Some initially appeared promising before closer examination revealed more ordinary explanations. Others remain under investigation, illustrating how much of the region's archaeological record is still poorly understood. Naturally, more speculative ideas have emerged as well. Some enthusiasts have suggested that the tomb may lie within an undiscovered underground chamber carved into bedrock, sealed so completely that modern technology has yet to detect it. Others imagine hidden passages protected by collapsed entrances or natural geological formations. A few propose that future advances in remote sensing could eventually reveal subtle anomalies invisible to today's instruments. Archaeologists remain appropriately cautious. The absence of evidence does not justify extraordinary conclusions. At the same time, the immense size of the Mongolian landscape means that countless valleys, forests, and mountain slopes remain only lightly surveyed. The search continues. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this mystery is that it has endured despite centuries of curiosity. Empires rose and fell. Explorers crossed continents. Modern satellites mapped nearly every corner of the Earth. Yet the burial place of one of history's most influential figures remains unknown. Standing upon the windswept Mongolian steppe today, surrounded by endless horizons and distant mountains, it becomes easier to understand how a secret might survive for centuries. The landscape offers few obvious landmarks, only rolling grasslands stretching beyond sight beneath an immense sky. Somewhere within that quiet wilderness, perhaps beneath an ordinary hillside or hidden among ancient forests, history's most elusive royal tomb may still rest undisturbed. Whether it remains concealed by deliberate design, by the sheer scale of the land itself, or by traditions determined to protect it forever, the final resting place of Genghis Khan continues to challenge archaeology, inviting each new generation to wonder whether one of humanity's greatest historical secrets is still waiting patiently beneath the silence of the steppe.